Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Tom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and a pleasant good Wednesday morning to each and every one of you. Yes, we are donning the Marymount Lacrosse hoodie for our first segment today. I mean, you can talk about the Reds, you can talk about the Bengals, you can talk about all this other nonsense. 5 o'clock today, Clash of the Titans, the last two Division II state champions in Ohio boys lacrosse. Marymount, a rare underdog tonight. 5-time state champion, facing the heavily favored top-ranked team in the state, Columbus DeSales. Here we go. Bring your A game. Welcome to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10
A
to 12
P.
Thank you. You can follow us on YouTube, Chatterbox Sports page. And, Paul, you told me a little while ago, each and every month our downloads, and you can download in podcast form. Just search Off the Bench with Tom Brennaman. You're dialed in. That we're increasing by 15, 20% every month.
6th straight month in May that we have increased our podcast download numbers, so we're looking good.
Analytics. I'm not a big analytics guy, but I am in this regard.
Absolutely.
We're dialed in. Hey, don't look now, but the Redlegs are hot. I mean red hot, especially at the plate. During their current 4-game win streak, the club has had 10 or more hits and scored 8 or more runs in every game. Last night, the power really came from two unlikely sources, right? Jose Barrero came in the game in the 4th inning when TJ Friedel tweaked a hamstring. He clubs a mammoth grand slam in a 5-run 7th. And then there's Will Benson. The former Guardians' number 1 pick had 2 hits all year, had not scored a single run, not one. They sent him back to the minors. They bring him back up. Last night he's in there, has 3 hits, scores 3 runs, and everybody had to hold their breath at the end because Boston almost pulled it out. 9-8 the final. We talked about Ben Lively, his last start. This guy has been fantastic. The one-time highly rated Reds prospect went 5 2/3 innings, allowed 4 hits, no runs, struck out 6. He has won games in back-to-back starts, his first wins as a starter in the big leagues since 2017. Game 2 tonight at Fenway Park. Luke Weaver starts for the Reds. He'll be opposed by James Paxton. Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman will be here to talk about the Redlegs in just a couple of minutes. Diamond Sports Group, you know them as Bally's, has decided not to pay the San Diego Padres their rights fees money. This is a monumental development as the team's broadcast rights revert to Major League Baseball starting tonight. The team's games will be streamed. They'll be supposedly on different cable channels. Now, like the Reds, the Padres have ownership in their local Diamond Sports or Bally Sports and are not a part of one lawsuit, but a separate lawsuit will be heard by a judge today in Houston that does involve the Reds, along with the Rangers, the Guardians, and the Diamondbacks, where Bally's is claiming it should have to get a break on the rights fees and not pay what they're contractually obligated to pay because really, forces have changed since signing the deal in television. Stay tuned. This is big stuff. Later in the show, speaking of big, an extended interview with baseball super agent Scott Boras. Lots of football news. Bengals receiver Tyler Boyd showed up yesterday at OTAs, said his injury in last year's AFC Championship game cost the team a win. Boyd, you may remember, in the first quarter had 2 catches for 40 yards before suffering a thigh injury on a 24-yard completion. He said he tried everything to halt the pain, but could not get back to full speed. Despite being overshadowed by Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, Boyd ranks 5th in Bengals career receptions, 9th in receiving yards. He is entering the final year of his contract. Cleveland quarterback Deshaun Watson said he'd love for his current team to make a run at his former teammate, DeAndre Hopkins. You may recall the three-time Pro Bowl wide receiver was released by Arizona last week. Hopkins and Watson had monster seasons together in Houston, especially in 2020, when Hopkins caught 104 passes for over 1,100 yards. Anderson High School alum Andrew Norwell is on his way out of Washington. A report out of D.C. said Norwell will be released once he passes a physical. The one-time Pro Bowl guard with Carolina entered the league as an undrafted free agent out of Ohio State in 2014. FC Cincinnati plays in the Lamar Hunt Open tonight.
Oh, yeah.
We'll play in New York. The MLS leaders will get back to their real schedule this weekend in a home game against the Chicago Fire. Speaking of fire, always bringing the fire. What are you donning there, Dad? What's that big league pullover you have?
You see it, man. They're celebrating tonight's big matchup in Dayton. The Marymount Warriors in the Final Four tonight against St. Francis de Sales of Columbus. 5 o'clock start time. We invite anybody who likes lacrosse or has a rooting interest to show up at Chaminade Julienne High School, 5 p.m. They start, and it should be a great game.
You know, I don't know, and I meant to ask the guys here, did you have a chance to watch it all? And I don't necessarily bring this up because, you know, your grandson, my son, plays lacrosse. Did you watch any of the college Final Four or the national championship game over the weekend?
I did not. I watched a couple of games during the regular season. I watched Notre Dame and North Carolina play a few weeks ago, and of course Notre Dame wins the whole thing. It's really interesting if you've watched a lot of high school lacrosse to watch some of the better teams in the country play on a collegiate level, because it's you talk about a fast-paced game. As fast as it can be in high school, it's incredible in college.
Somebody just told me the other day that there is some, I don't know if it's on Netflix or wherever it is, that there was some documentary done on Wayne Gretzky. And people may not know this, but the national sport of Canada is not hockey. The national sport of Canada is lacrosse. And he was asked in this documentary, he said, did you ever play lacrosse? He said, yep. Played till I was 15 years old, and I could not take it. I got the snot beat out of me every single time I took the field, and I said, I'll never play again. He was dead serious, said, we'll never play it again, and quit when he was 15. You watch those college guys. That's one of the most exciting sporting events that I have seen in a long, long time. The two semifinals went into overtime, and then the national championship game was the first ever national championship for Notre Dame. It was just, it was unbelievable to watch. All right, anyway, most of the people here want to talk about the Reds. I don't know about you. I certainly never saw this kind of offensive production coming from this team. They're not necessarily hitting many home runs, but when it comes to scoring runs, they're ranking in the roughly top 12 in the league. Are you as surprised as I am?
I'm stunned, but I think it points up one thing that, and it may apply to all sports. I don't know enough about the other ones as I do about baseball, but it points up one thing, that when you start to draw conclusions based on a group of players, whether they be veterans, whether they be young players, whether they be a mix, and you start basing your determination on how that team will fare based on the talent at hand, especially with a young club like this, this is the best example in the world of not being able to determine how fast, if it ever happens, that some young players can come. And I use this club the Spencer Steer is a great example. Who knew what this kid was going to do? Nobody knew. They got him in a trade from Minnesota. He's become a solid, big-time baseball player. And I don't think that what he's showing right now is a fluke. I think that he's established himself now. He's comfortable. And you can name a bunch of players. The Fraley kid, the Friedel kid. Of course, India is a strong example of leadership on this ball club. The list goes on and on and on. And a kid that pitched last night, Ben Lively, and I say this with the most incredible reverence for the late, great Tom Browning, because as he was back in the day, the first person, Tom, was to tell me, to alert me to a young man by the name of Johnny Cueto, who I'd never heard of. He was in the lower minor leagues with the Reds. He did the same thing with Ben Lively. Now, for whatever the reason that it took Lively all this time to become a productive major league pitcher, and maybe the sample size is too small to be talking about. But at the same time, I go in to watch him pitch at Fenway Park last night, 5 2/3 innings of shutout baseball, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, 4 hits allowed. He was very impressive. And this kid, he may be a fluke. It may be an indication of what's still to come. But my point is, it's hard to judge a team, and I'm as guilty as anybody. When I looked at this roster coming out of spring training, I said this club's going to have a hard time. It's not had a hard time, or if it has, it's overcome that with a tremendous game-by-game approach that has involved everybody almost. Now, last night, the bullpen was a disaster, almost giving it up in the 9th inning. But this club, fortunately, is in, and I say this, and I think the record would bear me out, the worst division in Major League Baseball. 4.5 games separate front-running Milwaukee from last-place St. Louis. Pirates are a game back. The Reds are 3 games back. Cubbies 4, and the Cardinals are 4.5. But that behooves them, as well as a team like Pittsburgh and maybe the Cubs. I don't know. They look terrible over the weekend. But what they've done is really exciting. It's a fun team to watch play when they're playing well, and they certainly were impressive last night from an offensive standpoint at Fenway Park.
All right, look, you scolded me a little bit. I felt like I was, 11, 12 years old again. When I asked you either last week or the week before about changing your expectations now a little bit based on what you just said. The Brewers are coming to town this weekend. They're the first-place team. I don't think anybody in his right mind would have thought the Reds might have a chance to play in the first weekend of June against the Brewers with a chance to get in the division lead. So, look, they've got all these prospects, and we know, that the number of them that are really going to hit it remains to be seen. But,
correct.
If you've got 14 or 15 of them down there, I mean, you're not even going to consider the possibility of going out and swinging a deal that could change the look of your team to contend?
Well, no, I don't know. That's if they're going to stick by their guns financially, then that's not going to be a subject that will come up as you move toward the trade deadline at the end of July, and whether or not you're going to invest money in all likelihood on the short term because you're going to be trading for a player who probably will not be with you after 2 months or after the end of the season. I don't know. That's hard to determine. No. And then the determination would have to be, what area are we looking to improve in? For me, I still maintain that they do have some pitching problems. I don't think that can be denied, although Hunter Green's performance the other night was brilliant. I still think their bullpen is very suspect, and I still am concerned about how strong, from a physical perspective, this starting rotation can maintain when you're constantly going to your bullpen in the 6th, 5th, or 6th inning. I just don't understand how that works out. But I think the question you ask is certainly one that has to be considered in light of where they are right now on this day. And the fact that, as you say, they've got Milwaukee coming into town for the weekend. with a chance, if they can finish things off tonight and tomorrow in Boston before heading home to take on the Brewers. I don't think anybody would have asked that question. I agree with you 100% when this season got underway on that Thursday in late March. That come the first weekend and the first week in June, they were battling for first place in the National League Central.
All right. I think it was Trent Rosecrans who wrote the article in The Athletic yesterday. We discussed this topic at length, and as I was bouncing around town and doing things yesterday afternoon and last night, it was all over every talk show here in town. Trent laid out, what'd you think about trading India? A lot of talk about De La Cruz. Drum seems to be, pounding louder and louder and louder to get him up here based on what he's doing at AAA, which, now all of a sudden you might consider De La Cruz being your shortstop, moving McClain over to second base. What would you do at third? Blah, blah, blah. Would you consider trading India?
Yes, I would consider that. They're going to have real problems, and these are good problems. These are problems you always talk about. You'd rather have this type of problem than have the other kind of problem. Because you can also, if you're going to talk about that, you also have to consider what the hell's going to happen to Spencer Steer when Joey Votto, if he ever comes back. I mean, this kid's been one of those offensive leaders on this club. What are you going to do then? If Votto comes back, whenever that might be, and they're naturally going to put him at first base, they're not going to not put him there. But this De La Cruz thing, and I really truly believe, Tom, and of course they would deny this, but I believe that he's staying in Louisville right now because they don't know what to do up here with him. If they had a spot that was clearly evident, he'd be up here today. And he'd be installed just like Matt McClain was. They have a numbers problem, and it's a good numbers problem, but it's a problem nevertheless. And it's a problem that can affect the chemistry of this club. And the chemistry appears to be incredibly good. All these guys are pulling together as one. And I think, for me, chemistry has always been more important in baseball than it is any other sport by virtue of the number of games that you play. They've got hard decisions to make. They've got to figure out, and I noticed today David Bell said that Jonathan India is working incredibly hard to become a better second baseman, and I believe that he probably is. Mm-hmm. I think he certainly played better second base lately than he did leading up to the last 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever the case might be. And I think that the fact that he's working diligently on a daily basis to improve himself on a defensive standpoint enhances his situation. But I would certainly have to consider, at the end of the day, that question has to be asked, and I'm sure it's being determined and discussed in the upper echelons of this organization from a baseball perspective. What the heck are we going to do here?
Yeah, I mean, I just find this whole thing fascinating because, then you have a guy like Senzel. Now, I made the comment on the show here yesterday. Look, everybody has a back of a bubblegum card, okay? And his will tell you that he has been unavailable to play to no fault of his own, more times than not, with, injury after injury after injury, serious injuries. He had, surgery during the offseason. But all of a sudden, he's playing well. Everybody feels like he's your best player at third base. I've heard Jeff Brantley say this over and over and over again. He's the best defensive third baseman on the team, and offensively, he's doing some nice things. But, I mean, I said it yesterday, I would be shocked if the Reds looked at him as being a part of the future. Do you agree with that or not?
100%. You can say all the nice things you want to say, and I don't disagree with that. But he's a number one pick by the Reds, and he's a guy batting about 250. Now, I'm sure, the analytic people will say, well, we don't care about the batting average. But at the same time, I think when you're looking at all the talent they have on this club, I'd be hard-pressed to think of Nick Senzel as being a hard and solid piece of the future of this ball club. The injury thing is very unfortunate. And also, I think I stated this on the show, I think part of Nick Senzel's problem when he's been healthy is that he's bounced around everywhere imaginable. They played him at, almost every position you can think of. And I don't know that that's helped him a whole lot in his ability to become a mature, producing baseball player at the big league level. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think in his case it's helped him a whole lot. But as far as the future is concerned, I'd be surprised if he's seriously considered as part of this club in that regard.
You and I talk about this stuff in Half for Years all the time. I've been on the Reds pretty hard about not having India take fly balls in the outfield during spring training. They knew this whole thing. They knew it was coming. In their best-case scenario, they knew this was coming, including Marte at Double-A. Because once De La Cruz comes up to the big leagues, Marte is going to go to Triple-A from Double-A. So they know all this is coming with a bunch of infield guys. So they didn't do it. All right, now here's my other question. One thing I'll give him credit for, and I'm not just saying this because he hit a grand slam last night. I think a lot of people around here are throwing in the towel too early on Barrero. This kid's a physical specimen. He has proven to you that he's willing to go play wherever you ask him to go. He's gone out in center field. He made a hell of a play last night in center to cut down a runner at the plate, played the ball off the monster, perfect cutoff throw to short, throw a guy out at the plate, huge play in the game. I look at two guys. Let's just pick two guys, him and Friedel. Now, Friedel has played better than Barrero. There's no doubt about that. But here we are again with Friedel just coming off the injured list, and now he's hurt again. I would like to see an extended look in center field Barrero before I throw in the towel on that. You buying that?
Not really.
No? Okay.
I think this club is the number one club in baseball to hang in on guys long after they prove. I mean, so he hit a grand slam home run last night. Now, you know who else you're talking about when you talk about that stuff? You're talking about Akides or Aquino. Or Aquino.
Well.
Same thing.
Okay, but wait a minute now. I mean, you're talking about Barrero. He has only had around 400 at-bats. And the first year when he got a lot of them, the kid didn't belong in the big leagues yet. I mean, he was 20 years old. And, it was only 2 summers ago in 2021 when this guy put together a monster year at the minor league level offensively, as good as anything that anybody who's up here right now has ever done in a minor league season. And now in 2023, you're running him out of town?
Well, Tom, I think that again, I'm going to go back to Aquino. He had the best arm in this league. He was a good right fielder. He had one incredible month, and he hit a home run every 6 weeks after that. Right. It seemed. Everybody's getting all excited about the grand slam last night, and I will be the first to admit that ball left the bat and got out of the Fenway Park and hit that light standard faster than anything I've ever seen in my life. And I agreed with what Chris Welsh said. The ball would have been in the street had it not hit the light standard. At the same time, he's batting about 245 or 250. I know about the defense, and I think the kid has the physical attributes to probably play out there. He's got a good arm. He can never go back into the infield. He was a terrible shortstop. I just think he's going to get caught in a number situation. They will probably continue to play him in center field because there is nowhere else for him to play at the moment. Now, when De La Cruz comes up here, I don't know how that's going to impact Barrero, but I would give Barrero till the end of the year, and if he doesn't show me anything more than what I've seen from him from a big picture standpoint, I'd figure out some way to let him go somewhere else next year.
Well, the thing is that if unless they're willing to, approach India to move to the outfield or whatever they want to do, De La Cruz they could go to and say, hey, the outfield, right? Any of these guys, right, that are good enough athletes to do it. But the one area where they don't have a lot of big-time prospects, at least at the higher levels that are going to be an impact on this club in the next year or two, is in the outfield. So, you've got Fraley, and you've given him a chance. He's done a nice job. You got Friedel, who's a little older. Took him a while to get up here. They don't have regular guys out there in the outfield. So, maybe Barrero can show enough where they start looking around at the rest of the guys in that outfield and they say, well, he's young, he's cheap, he's talented, and who knows? Maybe we stay with him and give him a flyer and forget about him, as you pointed out, ever going back to the infield.
Well, that's a scenario that could play itself out as long as they realize they've got too many talented people ahead of him in the infield. Matt McLean has come up and, has immediately calmed things down from a defensive standpoint at shortstop. He's played that position. He's played extremely well, and we all know what he's done offensively. Here's a kid obviously ready to play in the big leagues, and they brought him up at the right time. And then you got Envia, and you got to decide about him before you decide about Barrera or anybody else. And you got Steer, who's at first base but also plays at third. You've got Marte, who's, as you said, going to be moved probably AAA when they bring De La Cruz up here. And the list goes on and on and on. You're right. They do not have three people that they can say, well, so-and-so is going to be in left, so-and-so center, so-and-so right. Daily deal. They move people around all the time. But I think David Bell loves to do that anyway. I think if you took that away from David Bell, he'd be the most depressed person on earth. He loves to shuffle lineups and play people in different positions and all that kind of stuff. So you may be right about Barrero. They may decide, look, this kid has shown us enough defensively in center field, and his baseball instincts appear to be very good. We're going to stick with him longer than we will with anybody else, and then decide what they're going to do at the corner outfield positions. That could work in Barrero's favor. I think that's the one thing that would work in his favor.
Shifting gears just to the baseball business side of baseball, I mentioned in the monologue about how Bally Sports, Diamond Sports technically under the umbrella of Sinclair, the parent company, came out point blank yesterday. And, they didn't mince any words at all. A, we're not paying our rights fee. B, we're losing money on this deal. When that contract was signed, the landscape, as they describe it, was very, very different in television and the way people watch and how they watch than it is now. We're losing money. We're not going to do it. Start with that. I've been saying on this show, Dad, for 4 months during the offseason that this was going to be the single biggest story in sports before this calendar year is over. Not only for baseball, but basketball, the NBA, so on and so forth. Do you think this is the first step of many where this is going to happen?
I do. This is the first domino that's going to fall, and then we'll find out when the dust finally settles. And I really believe that the dust will settle fairly quickly. When I say fairly quickly, I believe that by opening day in 2024, this whole thing will have been determined. I don't think it's going to be a long work in progress. Because, for a lot of reasons, most of which is the fact that there's too much money involved. And I think Major League Baseball has already gone on record and said, hey, we'll jump in an emergency, as they are now doing, I guess, beginning tonight with the Padres,
right,
to handling, the TV situation in light of the fact that Diamond Sports has bailed completely. But they're not going to do that forever. That's not going to happen forever, unless they can figure out a way where they can make a whole ton of money, which they probably can from a streaming perspective. What I don't understand is how Diamond Sports or Bally or whoever you want to call them can go into court and say, we should not be held accountable for that contract that we agreed to pay these teams X number of dollars on an individual basis a year, because it's not worth that anymore. A contract's a damn contract. And I think a court of law would hold that up and say, hey, you signed this paper. Nobody put a gun to your head. You got to pay. Well, they're going bankrupt, so that takes care of that. But I think the contract situation is something that makes me scratch my head and wonder what's the sense in even putting your name on a contract to begin with when it comes to situations such as this.
Yeah, I mean, my eyes go cross-eyed when I'm sitting there trying to read this stuff and figure it out, and
I know.
Bally's, they're saying, hey, we thought we had an agreement as part of this that one day we were going to be able to stream, but Major League blackout rules are preventing us from doing that, where we can make a lot of money. I think that there are some in baseball, like you point out, that have figured out some of this stuff. If the story was correct that I read from John Oran in the Sports Business Journal, and he's totally on top of his game, is that all of a sudden with this starting tonight, if I read this correctly, because Bally's could not reach agreements with some cable operators in greater San Diego, that starting tonight, their games potentially can be seen by over 3.2 million people compared to 1.2 million people under the Bally's umbrella, because they didn't work out agreements with different cable operators. I mean, if that's true, then baseball might have a way to make some serious cash.
Oh, I don't, believe me. I think that's the foundation for this entire thing. Well, I don't know. Maybe baseball in its incredible wisdom in this regard looked down the road 3 or 4 or 5 years ago and said, hey, this is going to be where real money is going to be made. Let's just sit back and wait and see how this whole thing plays out. And then if the time is right, we can jump in there and we can be the entity that reaps the benefits financially from the streaming of professional sports. They may be looking at this whole situation as something that they will take over and that they will make millions and millions and millions of dollars through streaming purposes. What other reason, and you may have a better idea, I don't have any, what other reason would the Major League Baseball powers that be deny Bally the right to have the streaming service unless they one day would like to have it themselves?
Well, the only thing I can think of in that regard, and again, I'm not smart enough, and I'm not going to even pretend to guess, or I'm not going to pretend to know. The guess is, for me, is I think everybody looks at the NFL model as far as television, all that kind of thing. Now, baseball is a very different game, and every game is nationally televised in football. But, they were the first ones to go out and sign the big Thursday night package with Amazon. Baseball followed suit last year and has this year that Friday streaming thing with Apple. I think they potentially, I'm guessing, they see another line of revenue from another one of the big ones, whether it's Prime, whether it's Netflix, whether it's whoever it is, that all of a sudden, maybe they were protecting some of that stuff. I don't understand it. But, it's going to be interesting because, as I mentioned, there's another hearing today in Houston that the Reds are involved in. People around here got excited because Bally's paid, and this was only a portion of what they were supposed to pay the Reds overall this season. It was their first installment of payments, which they made about a month and a half ago. But now all of a sudden, Bally's has this deal with the Reds, the Rangers, the Guardians, and the Diamondbacks, where all 4 of those teams are scheduled to get another round of payments here sometime soon, and Bally's is saying it ain't happening.
Well, I mean, you're right. I think the Reds are due. I think they're due another payment in June, and it'll be interesting to see if Diamond/Bally answers the bell and sends them a check to cover the monthly payment that they owe leading up to that particular period of time. I don't know. There's so many things available or involved in this whole thing that could, if one domino fails to fall, it could change the whole pattern of the way this thing is going to end up. But I simply can't believe that looking down the road, going into 2024, that this thing will still be up in the air and still be the elephant in the room. Maybe from a legal standpoint, it will and will be for a long, long time. But I just got to believe that Major League Baseball has been planning for this eventuality for quite some time. I think they hired 2 people who some months ago that have been involved in televising local sports on a local or statewide level, as well as streaming. So I think they're preparing to step into this thing and figure out how it's going to best benefit Major League Baseball. And if they decide from a streaming perspective that we can make tons and tons of money, they're going to jump into it with both hands and feet.
All right. Well, we've kept you a long, long time. Appreciate it very much as always. Great to see you. I'll look forward to seeing you a little bit later on this afternoon.
Correct. We'll be right there, pal.
Hey, by the way, this is Casey's last show before the wedding bells ring this coming Saturday.
Well, if that's the case, let's see. Today's Wednesday. I imagine then that maybe tomorrow night he'll go out and get lit up again and have a big party. A 48-hour party, that is. He does it tomorrow night, be 48 hours roughly before he ties the night. So he'll say, hey, let's get Paulie and all the boys together, and we'll reenact what we did at my bachelor party. Right or wrong, Casey?
Sounds good to me, Casey.
All right,
I'm in.
let's do
You don't have
it.
to convince me.
Yeah, let's do it. Get everyone else that couldn't come.
You just say the word, Marty. Come on. Twist my arm.
We'll meet you down at the
That's
Banks.
a great idea. Casey's face lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, and then he badmouths his best man for who organized the whole thing. We asked for a rating. He gave the guy an 8. The guy was a 10+, and Casey gave him an 8. So, maybe somebody else will organize it because he ain't doing it.
I don't blame him. I wouldn't. You don't appreciate me, then I don't want anything to do with it.
That's exactly right.
I quickly changed it
Doesn't
to a
matter.
10.
When you
I changed
were
it to a
asked
10.
the question, you gave him an 8. You were asked the question. Then you backpedaled. You felt bad. And I'm surprised he's showing up Saturday, to be honest with you. But that's just my opinion. All right, Dad. Love you. I'll see you tonight.
All right, Tom. Love you too, pal. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. All right, Marty
See you,
Brennaman
Marty.
right there covering everything Cincinnati Reds.
Reds are hot, Tom.
Yes,
They are hot. I give it up. They're playing great. I mean, boy, how many of you now? I got to tell you, I had it on. We had a lot going on, and it was whatever it was, 9 to 2, and then it went to 9. I don't know, whatever it was, and it's a 9th inning, and I just turn it off, and I get up this morning and I'm getting ready for the show. And I see 9 to 8. I'm like, there's no way that's right. 9 to 8.
Yeah.
And the tying run was at third.
Yeah. Thank God for Alexis Diaz.
All-star.
Well, there's no doubt. No doubt about it. I don't know how many Reds. Luke and I were talking about this last night. I don't know how many Reds are going to make the All-Star team this year. But if there is one guy for sure, and they have to take one from every team, if you have to take one guy on this team, it is without a doubt Alexis Diaz.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be hard for Steer. He's right there in the hunt for the Rookie of the Year award. He's got to keep going. He's got good competition there for that award. But, he's not going to, as a first baseman, that's mighty tough. Damn near impossible. Because you got some juggernauts over there at first, in both leagues. But, India, I haven't looked at some of the other second basemen around the National League. If he keeps playing the way he's playing, he's got a shot. And that's pretty much where it starts and ends. Had McClain been up here sooner, obviously, he would have a chance. But that's not happening. Okay. All right. People saying to extend Diaz. I'm not extending anybody. Nobody. Go play. Speaking of, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we were talking about this here today with Casey and Paul and Jacob Tissett, who's interning with us this summer. The difference between Tyler Boyd and Jonah Williams. Did you read the comments yesterday made by Tyler Boyd? I'm not so sure that a PR firm could have written it any better than the things Tyler Boyd had to say yesterday when he came in for OTAs. He knows what's going on, and he addressed it. He laid it right out there. I know I'm behind in priority getting paid an extension of a contract. His contract ends at the end of the year. He said, I know that. I know Burrow's up. I know T. Higgins is up. I get it. But we'll talk about some of the other things that he said yesterday in really what was the first time he's done any interviews with anybody since the AFC Championship game when he got hurt. Ham and Eggers, Mr. President, by all means.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Before we get into any advertisements today, make sure you like the stream. Look, we have 121 people in here watching right now. Go down there, hit that like button, share it. We have Scott Boras coming up at the top of the hour. It's going to be a great interview. You know it always is when Tom's doing an interview. So go make sure you like the stream and share this around so we get more people watching. Subscribe to the channel. Do all that good stuff. We're at 35 likes right now. Let's get it to 50 before the interview. We could probably do that. Let's get it to 50 before the interview. Come on, everybody. We're going to talk about the Bengals, too. And the Bengals Report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve efficiency and
productivity.
Visit Encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here. There's also a new premium alkaline water out. It's right in front of us. It's Pani. Pani uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use, and the result is a healthy alkaline water that is the best tasting water in the world. You can visit their website at paniwater.com. That is PAHHNI water.com. PAHHNI water.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. And again, Pani Water, it is the official water of the River's Edge concert series for the summer. So if you're out here and seeing any of the great bands that are going to be out here in Hamilton, you can get some Pani Water. If you find Pani out in a store, send us in a tweet. It's at the gas stations. It's all over the place in the tri-state area. Make sure you send that to us. All right. So drink Pani Water. Get your coffee from UDF. Bet with Betfred. And get your technology solutions from Encore.tech. And again, like the stream. We've already got about 10 more likes in this stream. We're at 44 now. We can get to 50. We can get to 50. And if you haven't subscribed in podcast forms, I was talking to somebody the other day, going back and listening to the show later. If you want to go back and listen to the show and you don't want to do it on YouTube, that's fine. You can download the show. It's in podcast form. The same with all the other shows here on the Chatterbox Sports platform. We have a channel on Apple Podcasts. We also have everything on Spotify, any of these other, Stitcher, any of these other podcast platforms that you want to go and listen to your podcast. You can do that. Just search Off the Bench, or you can search any of the other podcasts. You can just search Chatterbox Sports, whatever you want, and you can find them on there. I see everybody talking about merch.
I do have one last thing before we continue on forward.
Okay.
Discord, we're trying to get people to get back into the Discord a little bit, get that a little more active, because we want submissions. We want Q&As, things that we can do outside of the show that can just add a little content on our platform. So please go back to the Discord, turn on the notifications on there. We will post the Discord link here shortly.
Yeah, we'll put the Discord link in the chat here. And then also on Box Lunch today, Jacob will be joining the show. He'll be sitting over there, and the Zebra, Elliot Rearing, will make his Chatterbox debut. So all of that coming up on Box Lunch today. Busy day. Busy day on Box Lunch.
Looking forward to that. All right, quick question. Everybody chime in on the chat, because I got to ask you something here. Okay? I mean, we had a big leaguer on there a second ago in Marty Brennaman. He has rooting interest like I do in Marymount Lacrosse. Scott Boras has no rooting interest in Marymount Lacrosse. Do I keep the hoodie on, or I go make a quick costume change?
No, you keep that on. Stay true to yourself. Who cares what he thinks?
I'm just curious what you think. I'm asking your opinion.
Now,
I want an honest answer.
You could explain the hoodie to him off the bat if you want.
Okay. All right.
but it's your son's senior year playing in the state Final Four. I think he'll understand.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, everybody's saying keep the hoodie. Okay.
I think you have to keep the hoodie on top.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
How
We'll
often does your son play in a state Final Four in his senior year?
Well, only one time in his senior year. This is
right.
his third straight trip to the Final Four. Not bad.
Got to bring home the trophy.
Got to go get him. Got to go get him. All right. Speaking of go getting him, you got some sound there from Tyler Boyd. Did I see that?
I do.
Okay. What is? Let's just put it up. We'll figure out what he's talking about. Let her rip.
This is my home for now, and I just ain't going to worry about the unexpected. I'm here to finish this year out, and whatever happens, happens, but I know we have a very, very high chance of making the Super Bowl and even winning, and this is where I want to be, whether I come up with a new deal or not, I got to just go out there and I'm going to be me, I'm very appreciative of them still wanting me to be around and knowing that they don't want to trade me and things like that, but, at the end of the day, I just got to help guys get better, we ain't gonna be playing ball forever. I might not be here forever, but I'm always love this franchise, and I'm always be a Bengal. This is my.
He was here when the team won 2 games in a season.
Yeah.
He is, for all intents and purposes, he is the elder statesman at only 29 of this franchise, and. Everybody agrees that has watched Tyler Boyd. Now there's a guy that would be on your Nut Cutter Nation team. That guy is a gamer. He has played through some unbelievable injuries in his career, and he just keeps on going. A couple of years ago when he broke the finger and the thing was like sticking out of
that was
last
this
year.
Yeah.
And goes in, surgery, fix it up, bam, right back out there. This guy's been a hell of a player for this franchise through bad times and now the good times. And these are the decisions that make it very, very difficult for ownership and for fans. Because if you're going to pay Burrow and you're going to pay Chase, you think you're going to pay Higgins. And I say think because I don't think that's a slam dunk. I could be wrong. But Boyd's contract is up at the end of the year. You just drafted Jones. And, he was very complimentary about them drafting Jones. And this is a guy that could take his job. He gets it. Guy's been around the block. He lays it all out there. He says, I want to be here. I don't want to be anywhere else. This is my franchise. I love the place. And I love that we're competing and we're winning. And now we're a franchise that people look at. And they're like, whoa, we're playing the Bengals. Better bring our A game. What are your thoughts, Casey, as Mr. Bengal of this studio?
Yeah, I really like Tyler Boyd's leadership. I like what he's done for our team. He's always been a team guy. In the future, this year is one thing. I think he should play his hardest this year, obviously, because he needs to get a contract somewhere, right? And being the third string guy, it's hard to get what you want. He might not get that 1,000-yard season. He might not get that top money. But that's definitely what he deserves. I think he is just as important to the equation in our offense as Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. I think that when they're all out there together, we are at our very best, and we play our best football. When one of those guys gets hurt and they're out of the lineup, you see a significant – you don't see a terrible dip in production, but you see it.
Yeah.
And it's not what it could be when he's not in the lineup. And for Boyd to be almost admitting and being so selfless and saying, I'll always be a Bengal when he knows he probably won't be a Bengal next year. I just love guys like that. Love guys like that.
Well, now that's juxtaposed with your guy, Jonah Williams.
Absolutely. Who I cannot stand already. So.
Wow.
I don't. I'm.
That's big. Paul, are you in shock sitting next to him? I mean, is stuff like vibrating over there?
I know. You okay, Casey?
I just hate Jonah Williams' conversation. It's old.
I thought you were about to say you just hate Jonah Williams.
Oh no, I'll never do that again. I mean, I have my opinions on Jonah. I think he values himself too highly than what he actually is, what he can actually do on the field, and I think that's where I get my frustrations with him. I think the difference between the two of them, right? Tyler Boyd knows his worth, but is selfless enough to take that team-friendly approach, or Jonah Williams doesn't know his worth and takes a un-team-friendly approach. And so it's just, yes, they have somewhat of the same mentality. They'll play hard for their team. But when push came to shove, Tyler Boyd is actually what the makeup is, and Jonah Williams is not what you want, right? Jonah Williams should be out there trying to compete for the right tackle spot. He should be.
I agree.
And I hate talking about like the contract numbers and whatnot between a left and a right, because those numbers have just in the last couple of years. I mean, it almost doesn't make much of a difference between the right and the left. You might make the same amount of money that you were going to make at left as right, especially for Jonah. He's not a top-end tackle by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
So that to me, I'm not a fan of it. And the fact that he's not there and he knows that there's other options there that could compete and take that spot, it doesn't put him in a good position anyways. Like, he might not start regardless of what his contract is. I really don't think the staff is going to say, well, he makes $12 million, so he should be playing. When they've got Lyle Collins there, they've got Carmen there working his ass off. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think the money is the reason why he's going to start. It's going to be because he's the right fit there, but there's just no way that's going to happen.
Well, I would agree with you as it pertains to if it came down to Collins is not ready. Most people think he won't be, although he's looked mighty good moving around from that ACL injury late in the year. You're paying Collins a lot of money. You're not paying Carmen a lot of money. And we know you're paying Williams $12.6 million. If it comes down to Williams v. Carmen, Williams is going to get it because of money, is my belief. Now, if it comes down to Williams v. Collins, and Collins is ready to go, Collins has played right tackle, proven veteran at that position. Williams is not here trying to learn that position. I think Collins gets a nod. But if it comes down to Carmen and Williams, should Collins not be ready? And look, then you got to ask yourself the question. We've talked all the time about would they trade one of these guys, Williams being the most obvious. One thing that you can't do is spend $24 million on a right tackle. You cannot do that. And that's what you would be paying. You'd be paying 3 guys the same amount of money that you're paying one guy to be your left tackle. They're not paying all 3. Somebody's going to go. Whether it's a trade or whether it's released and you soften the cap hit. But the bottom line is Williams is not here, and we've said it on this show from day one. It is astounding to me, whatever advice he is getting. And it's one thing to get advice. It's another thing to listen to that advice. I'm gonna ask Scott Boras this question today. Now, he's never been a football agent. There have been guys from football that have tried to get him to be a football agent. He wants nothing to do with it. He only represents baseball players. I think he's got like 75 in the big leagues and almost 200 if you add up guys that are in the minor leagues. And but I would be interested just to hear. We're going to lay out as simple as possible kind of the way this thing's been handled by Williams in his camp. I'm sure he's probably – I mean, look, the thing I love about Boras is you can ask this guy anything, and we're going to ask him a lot of stuff here today. including, by the way, Jonathan India just made the move last year, left his old agent, and now has hired Scott Boras as his agent. And the talk about maybe a position change, potential trade we've been talking about. But I'm guessing, knowing Scott Boras a little bit, he's just going to say, hey, look, I don't know enough about this situation, and I'm not going to sit there and second-guess some other agent when I don't know anything about it. And you know what? He's probably right. Chris Biersack. Did any of you watch The Sopranos?
That's after Succession.
That is the greatest of all streaming shows in the history of streaming television, is The Sopranos. It is the best. There is a very popular character on that show called Polly Walnuts. Chris Biersack says, I am starting to rock the Polly Walnuts hairdo. I don't think that's a compliment. Type up Polly Walnuts. You've seen this character before in lots of other things. He's a great, great actor, this guy.
Fire it up.
Come on. Chris says, definitely a compliment, Tom. I'm not buying it. I think he just passed away, didn't he? Does it say on there?
Not sure.
Okay. Let's see the picture of Paulie Walnuts.
Yeah,
So here's the do I'm sporting.
Tony Sirico.
You know what? He's right.
He died.
I hate to say it.
He died in July of last year.
Yeah. What a great character he played in The Sopranos. Now, is that the dude that I'm sporting right now? A little darker. He might be onto something. Oh, my God. Chris, you have just, you punched me right in the gut. He was also in Goodfellas. Guy's a great actor. Okay, just checking in, making sure everybody's good on the chat. Anything I'm missing here?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, he did. He died in July of last year, Tom.
Okay. All right.
Tom, one thing, just to get back to the Reds real quick,
yes.
since we're going to get to Scott Boras here in a second. I was thinking about this. One thing that I really don't want this Cubs sweep to turn into, do you remember last year, the first weekend of the year, they went down and they split that series against Atlanta?
Yes.
And the whole running joke of the season became, they played well in Atlanta.
Right.
I hope that the Reds continue to play well and the rest of the season does not become, well, they did sweep the Cubs. Remember that? I was thinking
it's a good point.
I was thinking about that.
Point.
Thinking, let's keep this momentum going forward so that doesn't become, well, remember back in May they swept the Cubs?
I tell you, it's going to be very interesting. I don't know if they have this coming weekend any promo stuff going on, bobbleheads or concerts.
Oh, they got Zach Brown Friday.
Okay, then it's going to be a huge crowd Friday night.
And fireworks.
Yeah, so that'll be a huge crowd. It will be interesting to see what kind of crowds they get then on Saturday and Sunday. Friday, I'm going to take out of the mix. Zach Brown Band, they're going to be people just come down there to watch them.
Yeah.
But, here they have a chance where they, they're getting people at least back on their radar because of the way they're playing. So, we'll see. I still think there is a lot of, just kind of, like I just said, we'll wait and see. I think there's just a lot of apathy out there. Friday will no doubt be a sellout. No doubt.
Jacob and I will be there.
Really?
Yep.
Zach Brown Band. You a big Zach Brown Band guy?
Well, they're probably my favorite band.
No kidding.
Yep. So Lizzie and I are going down. My whole family's going down. But we're all going down Friday, and then it'll be a fun weekend.
Are tickets a little more expensive?
Yeah, I think we paid close to 40, maybe 30 something. Still for a game, fireworks, and a concert. Yeah.
Chris says that it's Joey Votto bobblehead day on Saturday.
Oh, well, then there you go.
There you go.
Well, that means I got to go swing
Did Zach
by
Brown
there.
Band sing that Chicken Fry song?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pair of jeans that fit just right. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
There you go, Tom.
That's a big league song. That is a great song.
It is. So the reason they're playing on Friday, it's a charity concert because one of the members of Zach Brown Band has ALS, and it's Lou Gehrig Day in Major League Baseball. So they're doing it as a charity concert with the Reds. So that's part of it. But they're playing a full set. It's not just like one of those post-game things where I don't know how they're going to do the stage. I guess they'll set it up in between when the fireworks are going on.
No, they do a really nice job. I've been down there when they have those, and they really do a nice job. They get that stage right around the dirt area, second base. They set it up quickly, and they do a really good job. Speaking of ALS, you see this number 37 down here on the bottom of this shirt. That is a number. G-Force is for Graham Harden, who was a legendary lacrosse player at the University of North Carolina. Later became a coach at Marymount, and he died of ALS a couple of years ago. And there are all kinds of fundraisers that have been on his behalf. Okay, is Mr. Boras ready to go?
He is ready.
Well, it's a pleasure. I tell you, I can't believe the guy's 70 because he doesn't look like it. He grew up in Elk Grove, California, the son of a dairy farmer. Scott, you've come a long way since the son of a dairy farmer, young man. Good morning, and thanks for joining us so early out in Southern California.
Yeah, it's nice now. I have to get up at 6 in the morning instead of 3:30. It's wonderful,
Were you milking cows as a kid growing up?
All the time. That's kind of what you I read the Ted Williams book on hitting, and I'd cut a tire in half, and I nailed it to a post outside the barn. And what we do is we would, you put the milk machine on the cow, and you had some minutes where you could go out, take some swings, go back in, change it, put it back on. So that was the daily routine.
It's an incredible work ethic to learn, though, Scott. I've been around a lot of football players, offensive linemen, guys that grew up in Wisconsin or in Ohio, and they grew up on dairy farms or worked on dairy farms, whatever it might be, farming in general. I mean, the work ethic you learn, whether it's on a family farm, it's so unique, I think, compared to just about anything else. Would you agree with that?
I just gave a commencement speech at my law school, and my father, who's 93, got to come, and I thanked him for what I call the farmer's ethic of what they do and how hard farmers work to care for their land and their animals and really keep their farm running. For me, we had our crops, and you had to sit on tractors and such, and I would literally tape a transistor underneath my baseball cap, and I got to listen to Russ Hodges and Lon Simmons and Bill King with the Giants and A's, and that just made my day and made my passion for baseball all the more.
You end up walking. Oh, by the way, I was supposed to apologize ahead of time for my attire. Our son is playing in the state lacrosse Final Four today, and so I am donning his our high school, Marymount High School, tonight. So I apologize if I look like I just walked out of a bar. Please,
congratulations! Lacrosse is a great game. Great game.
Yeah, it's a great game. Really hurting baseball here in Ohio. We can talk more about that a little bit later on. But, you walk on as a baseball player at the University of Pacific. You end up in the school's Hall of Fame. You spend 4 years in the minor leagues as a player. You were an all-star at 3 different levels in the Cardinals organization. And then a knee injury wrecked your career. How hard was that, knowing what could have been, I guess, to walk away from the game so young?
I had a college professor, organic chemistry professor, Dr. Gross, tell me one time, he came out and watched me play, and things were going really good for me in college, and I was leading the team in hitting, and pro teams were interested in me, and things were going the way you wanted it to go. And he said to me, remember that what you do above the shoulders is going to have a lot more to do with your life than what goes on below. And your biggest asset as an athlete is going to be your mind. And don't forget that. And as you go forward, keep that in mind. And it was valued advice. I sat in a hospital bed after my third knee operation. And I always remember that advice and frankly, that direction about taking on and always keeping the mind active and learning. And really that's what took me to law school after my, baseball career ended.
Well, it's one thing, Scott, as you know, to get advice. It's another thing to heed the advice, especially if it's good advice. You got your doctorate in pharmacy, a degree there. Then you go to law school, get your law degree. 1980, you start a career as a sports agent. Very different world in 1980 than it is right now to be a sports agent. Who or what made you decide that was going to be your career path?
George Kissel was a mentor of mine in the Cardinal organization. And he would always say a couple things to me. He goes, "Thank God you can hit because it's going to give you enough time to learn how to catch a baseball." and he also said to me, "No matter what you do, I could just tell you in your life that baseball is going to be the face of you." And he repeated that 2 or 3 times, and I was hopeful that meant I was going to stay in the game as a player for a good bit. And but when I was outside of baseball, I'd had now 11, 12 years of school. I had medical, legal degrees, and I had a resume, and I prepared for these law firm interviews, postgraduate in law school. And in doing so, I looked at all the companies that each law firm represented. Most of them were drug corporations or medical associations. And so I went in every interview. I think there was like 8 of them. And every interview, all they talked about was baseball. They talked about my baseball career, what we did, all those things. And I was astounded. I couldn't believe it. And got a job offer from all the firms. And so when I started my legal career, my teammates kept calling me. We were talking about how they thought, their approach, how to get better, really a lot of the psychology of the game that we shared when we played together. And then one of my senior partners came to me and said, "Look, I have a family that their son is a very good baseball player, and he's a high draft pick." And he asked, "Why don't these drafted players have representation? And I want you to do pro bono work and help these people." And I said, "I'm not sure it quite works that way. You have to have talent to have leverage in the draft." But I got the idea that the drafted players the bonuses had not changed from 65 with Rick Monday all the way through. This was in 1982, and I went out and picked 2 players, Tim Belcher and Kurt Stillwell. I said, "I'm going to aid these players, both high school and college players, in the draft." And they ended up being the first and second players chosen. And after that, my calling was about given to me, that it wasn't going to be in a medical legal career. It was going to be more in the game I love, in baseball.
You had players that people know their names if they follow the game for a long time when you first started out. I mean, you mentioned the 2 amateur players, but you had Manny Trio, I think. You had Bill Caudle, good players, sometimes great players. But is Greg Maddux the guy that put you, quote unquote, on the map?
Without a doubt. Mad Dog I watched him pitch in high school. And he had some unusual bad luck. He had the bases loaded, nobody out, and then he just went in and just, massaged the baseball, could really control a fastball, make it run both ways, right and left. Amazing changeup. And as a former player, you recognize this, and he was a rather diminutive athlete for pitchers. And we developed a relationship, and he had a family friend, and they didn't hire me originally, but I kept talking with him, going to see him, and then finally he gave me the trust to represent him, and then we went through the steps of advising him to turn down as a first multi-year contract offer, and the second, and the third, and all the advice proved to be correct as to his assessment of his career, and then he ended up getting record contracts in both his first and second free agent periods in his career, and through Greg's performance and him providing, evidence to players that I knew both the game and legally what to do and how to manage the CBA and arbitrations and free agency. It really allowed me the platform of a great talent to exercise my skills and advance my career in being a baseball attorney.
Well, you're the first agent that signed a player to a $50 million long-term deal. That was Maddox. The first guy on a $100 million deal in Kevin Brown. The first guy on a $200 million deal in Alex Rodriguez. And then the 10-year, $252 million deal for A-Rod. You've had lots of other guys since. I mean, guys, big stars today, Bryce Harper and Garrett Cole and Anthony Rendon and on and on and on and on. Have you become, as the years have gone by, do you spend more time as the agent for the players and all that entails in that, or a recruiter for amateur players, high school, college players, to keep the business going?
To do this correctly, it really takes an army of people to represent players correctly. We have 140 people in our company, and we've got a sports training institute headed by Steve Rogers. He for 15 years was the strength conditioning coach of the White Sox, and Steve has done remarkable studies on durability. The most important thing you can get these athletes to understand is they have to be available and durable, and we know how to train them, what to do. We work with the teams to do that. I have all over the world development and scouting people that we certainly are very selective. Like, we're probably the fifth largest agency in volume, but we're very selective about the players who we choose to represent. We have a draft division, amateur division, where we monitor all the conduct of the players available to the draft, international divisions, where we really look for those unique talents. All of them are headed by an expertise in the office to run our business. Former major leaguer Jeff Musselman runs our office, and Scott Champerino, a former major leaguer, runs our draft and development. Mike Fiore, who also is a tremendous collegiate player and Olympian, runs all of our communication systems with players. We have probably 35 people that never leave the office. All they do is study the statistical data. We create algorithms and analytic theories upon which we base our evaluative measures of what to do with the player once they are in the major leagues, and what that evaluation is like. So it's a very complex focus on, and we only represent baseball players. That's the other part. We really stay close to the industry, because when you go to a parent's home, to the home of a parent, and you're talking about their son, we want to know that what we do 24/7 is about what their son does. So It's very different than the infrastructure of all the other agencies because most of them are part of a large entertainment company, or they may do other things, their companies, PR, corporate advancement, those kinds of things. And they all have sports divisions and represent multiple sports. That is not how I choose to run our business. And we wanted families to know that Boras Corporation is really a one-stop shop for expertise in baseball.
You know, Scott, you're not always the most popular guy in the room when you get together with, some general managers, some team owners, whatever the case might be. I know that that's not your job, and perhaps that's how you would answer this. But, look, I mean, there are people always when you're successful, people are going to take shots at you no matter what you do. I have always said, and we were talking about it before you came on the air today, the question was asked in this room, does anybody in sports do their job better than Scott Boras? And I looked at him after asking the question. I'm like, there's no chance there's anybody that does their job better in pro sports than Scott Boras. But it also means that there are a lot of people that don't like Scott Boras. How do you handle that?
Well, it's funny, and thank you for that, Tom. I appreciate
Well, I mean it.
that.
I mean, I've said many, many times, Scott. I don't even know if you remember this. I told the story on the air yesterday, and we were talking about you coming on about when Greg Maddux was still with the Cubs, and I had made some comments on WGN. And I get back to the hotel that night, and you called my hotel room, and I talked to you on the phone about it. And I thought to myself, that's the kind of guy I wish was my agent. That if somebody had something to say about him that might have any kind of influence, small albeit, on the opinions of other people, that this guy would go to bat for me that way. And I found it phenomenal and have thought so ever since. But back to the question. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent.
No, I think that this has been rather generational. When I first started in this, it was back when general managers were seasoned people in the game, and they weren't used to having lawyers walk into their office and say things to them about the value of players and why. And frankly, in that era, they were largely unprepared, and their direction towards information was more emotional than it was substantive. My job when you're a baseball player, it was very easy for me to go in and tell them, look, I've been offered jobs to work for teams. I've been offered jobs to manage teams. I've been offered all these things during my playing career. When it ended, I took a route where I'm representing players. Don't think for a minute that my judgments will be assessed, evaluated, but in time, the judgments that we've made were proved to be correct. And then with that came the respect that what we have to say is of merit. And modernly, we work with teams, and the general managers do not in any way carry on a real adversarial position. There is people that may not say it to you directly, indirectly. And I always say the idea is that I owe you the respect of preparation. I owe you the respect of substantive information. And I also owe you the respect of returning and calls and being on time. And I don't care what role you have in the game. I don't care what your age is. You're in the game and you have a role, and we want to respect that role and help you achieve it as we hope you help us achieve ours. But early on, after I did my first couple arbitration cases, and I had my labor law professor aid me in the development of the advocacy for those cases, he said to me that if you continue on the path that you're headed here, and we had won our first couple cases, he goes, 95% of what's going to be said about you is going to be negative. However, your players, your clients are going to love you. learn how to deal with professionally negative commentary, learn how to understand it, and remember that anything that you do to counteract negativity has to be substantively based, and it can't be emotionally based. And expect people to question what you do, how you do it. Expect them to not be on the side of your advocacy for the players, but understand that if you take that approach, the like and dislike of a situation will not be relevant. The professionalism of it will be.
When you get up every morning and come into the office, and you're a guy who goes to baseball games virtually every night. I mean, you're right there watching games. People come into Anaheim or come into Dodger Stadium, and you have clients on different teams and so forth. So you're there very late at night. You're coming in the morning. Obviously, you're getting up to do this very early in the morning out in California, and we greatly appreciate it. But you have, I read an article. You have a staff that, and you brought it up earlier, how they assemble everything that happened the night before for every single one of your clients. How they did at the plate, how they did in the field, whatever it might be. Is that the first thing you do when you walk in the office, unless you've gotten some urgent phone call from somebody? Are you looking at that data, or what are you looking at over the course of the day?
The best part of this job, Tom, is really helping players be better players. And, we have a psychological division, which is headed by Don Carmen, who's a former major leaguer. Don was trained by Harvey Dorfman, who I hired, and Harvey was really the first expert, baseball psychologist that I work with. And there's so much mental side. I'm not a hitting coach. We're not a pitching coach. We stay out of that realm because you really have to be there with the players on the field to do that. And so what we do is we talk about their approach. We talk about what they're thinking and how they're looking at things. And often we have a list where throughout the course of a season, everyone will be on that list, but it's a list where the performance of the player is not at the level that he hopes it would be. We have those discussions. We work through it. We go historically. We really do a lot of things to give them kind of their most successful moments, talk about those, and really aid them in giving them a foundation and for taking on the game every day, which is so difficult. But I have on our database, I have a list of every player we represent, major league, minor league. I get an update every half hour on my phone. When I come home at nights, I get a complete download of all the players' performances we had from the day before. You review it and you talk to those players that normally are having difficult moments in the game, and every once in a while you'll be on the phone talking to a player about a remarkable achievement. As frankly, of late, I've been with Matt McLain, with the Reds, who's had a remarkable start to his career in Cincinnati.
He sure has. It's interesting you bring up McLain because you also became the representative for Jonathan India. Now, look, you have, I'm sure, over the last day or two, been a lot of chatter here in town with all these prospects coming up. You mentioned McLain, you've got him. We've heard about Ellie De La Cruz, all these kinds of things. And the potential of India, who's been an outstanding offensive player. His defensive metrics have not been very good. That there's a possibility with a whole fleet of quote-unquote infielders that the Reds should consider asking India to move to the outfield. How do you feel about things like that? Because you've had other players where this has come up.
Well, the subject of defensive metrics are it's something that may take a whole nother conversation, but they're not very real to me. They're something that is almost 96% of what a player does on the field is something about the catch and the throw and the consistency of it. This idea of these range metrics that play a portion of the small percentage of what players do, and that's how we're going to evaluate an infielder. To be a player like Jonathan India and hit and play on the dirt and such is a very rare and valued asset for a major league team. And I don't tell teams what to do with players or how to do it. I do know this, that when a player is playing well and doing well, you do not interject them without proper training, without an appropriate period of time to insulate a player. I have a great player in Royce Lewis, who is a remarkable talent, and he's an infielder, and he's very athletic. And he was put into a situation in the outfield, due to an injury in a game in Minnesota. What happened? He gets hurt. And when you're doing unfamiliar things on a major league field, you have to be very, very cautious about the level of training and what you do. An outfield throw versus an infield throw. Utilization of the outfield walls and the routes and paths to do it. It's just not something that you do to a player in a moment. It takes a great deal of preparation and time to do that, and then you go from there. The other thing is the preference of the player. And normally players who are certainly all-star level talents at their position, they understand that while one organization may have a lot of talent at one particular position, other organizations, most don't, certainly, that can play at that level and hit at that level. So I'm sure it's nice to be the Cincinnati Reds and have all the wonderful infielders that they have, because few organizations have that. And I think the decisions going forward are more about, how they look at that and what they decide. But I certainly can tell you that Jonathan is playing at a high level at second base, and I'm sure that he certainly wants to continue playing at that position because he's playing it so well and doing so well offensively.
I'm kind of curious, Scott, as you know as well as I do, that, look, you can look at a set of statistics and you can present them in such a way that could prove either side of a debate, right? One of the big debates around here, kind of going hand in hand with what you're talking about, with, a gluttony of really good infielders, young infielders, where are you going to play them? Is somebody willing to move to the outfield? I don't know if you represent – do you represent Jose Barrero?
No, I don't.
Okay. This was more of a theoretical question, but involves a guy like him. The Reds brought him up very, very young, probably a little too young. In 2021, he's a number one ranked player in the minor league system, and he has a monster offensive season. He's come up to the big leagues and has really not hit much, although he's not playing regularly much either, in fairness to him. But I'm kind of curious, based on all the data you have, and I could ask a baseball, somebody who's a GM or something, and maybe this number would be different. But is there a certain amount of time where, you feel like it's fair at bats, plate appearances, whatever it is, innings, to truly form an opinion on whether you think a guy is a regular major league everyday player?
Tom, there are many varieties of introduction of a player to the major leagues. And, this goes back to the eye test, and it goes back to your own personal playing days when you advanced through the levels of the minor leagues and you're playing. The one thing you learn is that the player's psychology when he arrives in the major leagues is that this is a destination that he wants to keep. When you're in the minor leagues, you don't really care where you play. There's no ownership of it. The psychology of it is completely different because you're playing, the uniform you're playing in, and all those things don't really matter. When you put on a major league uniform for the first time and you're in the big leagues, you now want to keep that uniform. You want to stay in that city. All those things are interjected in addition to your play. Then you add to that you have been a prospect, you've been a player who's played every day, everywhere you've been in your life, and all of a sudden you arrive in the big leagues and you're faced with not playing every day. You know, Jonathan India went through this when he first arrived in the major leagues, and he was in and out of the lineup, and then he got a performance level that allowed him psychologically to really start putting at bats together, and he earned the everyday job and then earned to be the rookie of the year. But if you look at the start of that year to where he came through it, he had to weather those psychological moments of the concern, the newness, to all those factors. Now, with each individual player, it may not go to where all of a sudden you're going to grab onto it within a short period of time and then earn that everyday job. And a lot of it you have to look at individually, but when a player's that young and he hasn't had that 600 or 700 consecutive plate appearances in the major leagues, I look at the information and the performance levels much differently than I would if he were given the everyday job. He didn't have the concerns of going up or down, and he knew that he was established in the major leagues. Then his performance is truer to me, and there's less psychological components that can interfere with it.
The news came out not too far from you last night that Bally Sports, Diamond Sports, all under the Sinclair umbrella, would not meet its obligation in a contract to pay the San Diego Padres. They say the landscape has changed on and on and on. We've talked a little bit about already this morning. I have said for months, Scott, I think this might end up being the single biggest development in sports in this calendar year, 2023, and perhaps into 24. Where do you think all this is going? Do you think ultimately this could be a good thing for baseball, or is this trouble for baseball?
No, I think the financial positioning of one particular company has little to do with the value of what the rights of a baseball team are, content, and all those. This may be a wonderful opportunity for baseball to garner the rights of a team, create their own internal production, stream it, collect the resources from it, and really build the foundation of success that I think right retention in this sport, baseball, can bring. I think the model of what we can do with streaming is something that's far beyond what the cable system offered. What we can do to generate interest with it, and also how we can really economically weaponize it to be a benefit to teams. So I think this is a way where the freedom of rights given to the teams and given to the league will illustrate the greater value and purpose of it.
We hear so much about big market, small market. Certain teams, and you know who they are. Reds are one of them. Although the Reds in past years have spent some money to try and win, they're clearly going a different direction. A lot of other teams are going a different direction. Do you buy the big market, small? And I don't mean the market size in the city they live in. I'm saying, do you buy at all? And you have an incredibly unique perspective on all this. But for the fan out there, are you buying this big market, small market thing, and that small market teams can't compete?
Well, I would say that in any league, any sports league, you have venues that have different values. If you buy New York, Chicago, LA, you're going to pay a different value for it than you will, Cleveland or Cincinnati. And why? Population, market size, all those things. So when you go to put a league together, what do you do to create parity? And what do you do also to reward the owners who are paying 5 times as much, 4 times as much for a larger population and media market than those that are entering the league and paying really 20, 25% of that value to enter the league? You certainly can't go in and say that a league in a structure, when you're including all these cities of different size and market valuation, you can't say that they deserve equal treatment. You can't do that. And the reason is the investment is literally 4 to 5 times as much for the major markets as it is for the smaller cities. So what you have to do is create an equilibrium that allows the rewards of the purchase to be arguably brought to light. And then you allow for a league component, because those teams in the major markets literally have to pay to get competition into their cities to take advantage of their market share and what they do. What is that cost? And there should be a cost. And then the cities that are in the smaller markets, they are paying lesser than that amount to bring those teams into their markets because it has lesser value to them. And that equilibrium as to how you figure that out and what you do in leagues is usually going to be that you would expect that there should always be different approaches to competitiveness and performance. And by having the freedom for different approaches, and this is why salary caps to me have become something that prevents so many franchises from being intellectually and fiscally sound, is that they're never going to change because the system doesn't allow for intellect to operate. And for example, the one club can go out and have a rubber band approach, a flex approach, where they're going to go in and say, this is the time that we're going to, double or triple our payroll. And then we have other development times in our franchise history where we're going to limit what we do. So I fully believe that owners should be able to do what owners want to do. I don't believe in floors or ceilings. I believe that what the unique nature of a franchise should be that of what the intellect of the organization should determine in that moment in time. And allowing the freedom of a structure to allow that to happen, I think best serves the league and best serves the fans so that they know that their ownership has no restraint, and they know that their ownership has no minimums that they have to meet either.
But on that salary cap issue, though, Scott, I think it's fair to say, now intellectually or theoretically, you could completely disagree with what I'm about to say. But, the football model, let's just use them as an example, where they have a floor, they have a ceiling, and that kind of thing. I mean, a team like the Green Bay Packers, with a population of 107,000 people, can compete with New York, L.A., Chicago. Why is that a bad thing?
Well, football is a different sport. It's an event sport. They only play 8 home games. So consequently, their structure is largely around a TV contract. In our game, we have 81 home dates for a major league team. Many of these teams, their structure is around the fans and who they draw to the ballpark and what they do. For example, like the Oakland Raiders are not a good, or I should say the Las Vegas Raiders are not a particularly good football team, but they make the most money in the NFL. Why? Because people buy their tickets at premiums, because when they have that event in Las Vegas, all forms of fans come there from the opposing team to have a weekend junket in Las Vegas and watch their home football team play. Therefore, the value of their tickets went extraordinarily up, and they're generating massive amounts of income that other teams don't. So in each model, you can find an exclusionary element of it. But remember, in baseball, you have to fit it to what the league is. We're not an event sport. We are a sport where we have 81 games to market and sell in a particular region. And for doing that, we have to look at the game completely differently. But when you talk about restraint, when you talk about what one particular club or owner has to do, that you're going to fit into that model by inception, you have owners that are paying values that are completely different than the majority of the other owners to buy into the league. And therefore, you have to accommodate that in the structure of the league for it to be competitive. We've got Tampa Bay, who has a completely different model than, the New York Yankees. But on the other side of it is Tampa Bay builds a player. They come in and they say, look, after 4 or 5 years service, this player is not affordable to me. Who's going to buy that player? Who's going to trade for it? Well, the answer is we want to have portals for that so that that team has someone to sell that player to. And in return, they get their prospects to re-engage. So this quid pro quo actually exists where if you had a salary cap, that team couldn't move that player. That team wouldn't have a portal to allow for it to restructure in its own dimension in the ways that they do things. So free agency and valuations and having flexibility in some teams can pay more for a payroll than others actually creates more of a dimension for winning in different ways, using your intellect in different ways. And it also allows you to have a flow in the league that creates different spheres of opportunity, different spheres of competitive approach to allow for essentially different ways of winning, which I think makes the league vastly more interesting.
Would you be in favor of every player being a free agent at the end of every year?
No, I think there has to be standards in sport. You don't want to go out and project players on the basis of subjective potentials. You want to see exhibited performance. And in baseball, we have a system where few, if any, players reach free agency after 6 years. I mean, it's maybe an 8% level. You've got to perform. You have to perform year after year. And before you give a player a contract of years and value, you want to be certain that you understand the player understands himself, the player is filtered into a dynamic where you know all aspects of him. And I know my trust in the game and what we want to do, I want to know that about the people that I work for too, and I want them to know it. And I want them to have an established criteria for performance that I can be an advocate for, not just 1 year. And I think our game would be in very difficult shape because of the fact that we need to have a volume of performance, arguably 4 or 5 years minimum, to really look at what the constitution of a player, what his performance levels are. And then we have great criteria upon which to make major investments in that player. But certainly if you made every player a free agent, you would disrupt fan bases. You would create assessments that would be based upon very, very limited information. And I don't think that you would want to run a league in that manner.
Well, Scott, you've been so generous with your time so early in the morning. There are 1,000 things I'd like to ask you about, but maybe we'll do it another day. I just can't thank you enough for your time this morning and for joining us here on Off the Bench.
Well, I wish you well in your lacrosse.
Thank you.
With your son, and hope all that goes well. I just watched a little bit of the championship with in women's lacrosse. It was pretty exciting. So
yeah, it's really exciting. This is his third straight trip to the Final Four. We won the whole thing 2 years ago, got beat in the semis last year. Team that beat us last year, we're playing them again tonight. So we'll see what happens.
well, great.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Thanks,
Thank you
Scott.
so
All
much
the best. Thank you. Scott Boras, kind enough to join us very early in the morning out in Southern California. And I've said it 1,000 times. There might be people out there that aren't Boras guys, and you know what? That's fine. No problem. No problem. And I get why some people get upset with a guy. But if there's anybody out there, whether some of you are in a union, for example, or you're in some kind of job where you require representation of some kind, and I've been in that world for 35, 32 years, man, the thing I love about what they do is, and I wish we could have really gotten more, he alluded to different parts of it in the way his corporation is set up. But the thing that you heard him say very early on in the interview, they are all about sustained excellence and everything that goes into that for their clients. Now, they've had guys like Steven Strasburg. You've talked about him before. Gets him a huge contract, right? Injured forever and getting paid all that money. Well, that's a risk both sides take, right? And it's happened, and it's a shame. And there's nothing any kind of fitness regimen is going to do to change a blown elbow or a bad shoulder. You can't do anything about it. Unfortunately, it happens. But when it comes to the work his company does, I can tell you right now, if I had a kid that was going to go play baseball and he was a Tim Belcher or he was a Ellie De La Cruz or that's the guy. Because he's not just going to look at the stat sheet every day. Oh, man, my guy's tearing it up down. You heard most of the time his work with his clients is when guys aren't playing good. And why aren't they playing good? He's talking to them about their sleep, about their nutrition, about what are they doing in the offseason. He said he's not a hitting coach. He said he's not a pitching coach. They don't have guys telling them, turn your hips different, and the pitching coach is telling them something different. This is all more about the mental side and the physical preparation day by day over the course of a season and during the entire offseason. Anything strike you in particular, gentlemen, for Mr. Boras?
Nothing you didn't just cover right there. I think those were the biggest things to me. It's interesting hearing his take on some of these things, just the overall purview of what he has and his importance in this sport. I don't think there's anything, though, that stood out that you didn't just mention.
Yeah, the only thing I would have been curious to know is just more about what his thoughts are on certain players on the Reds. I know that Sir Boy had a super chat up earlier about Ellie, but other than that, I mean, he had a lot of different topics there about all around MLB, and it was a good interview.
All right, we'll take a quick timeout, wrap up a couple of other things leading up to. Do we have a cherry on top today?
We're working on that right now.
All right, working on it now. All right, Ham and Eggers, take it away.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
All right, so this is the second break of the day, so I just want to take the time to say that we are going to be doing box lunch very shortly, and we're going to have the Zebra, and we're going to have Jacob over there on the other side, on the side camera here, and it's going to be a good show. It's going to be a really good show. I'm sure all of you are very excited to get your chance to see Elliot, and we never did get the Discord link.
That's right.
I
have
will
it right here.
We will get that up there very shortly, so then you guys can make sure that you join the Discord, so then that we can.
I got it right here, Casey. Hold on.
Extend this chat to after hours, after the shows are done, and then any thoughts on anything coming up today? I'll tell you what. The one thing I do want to mention is the Lamar Hunt Cup Open. if another player on FC gets hurt, despite where they're at right now, I don't even think it's worth playing your starters if another one gets hurt. I mean, at this point, I know Nick Hagelin, for those that are in the chat, I know many of you love the MLS, so you would know who Nick Hagelin is. The fact that we lost him, I don't think is a big blow. I don't think it was a huge injury, but they cannot afford to lose anyone else, right? Especially when it doesn't quite matter. I'm in the mindset, kind of with Tom, that they need to just play for the MLS Cup, right? But I also get the fact that they want to, bring some hardware home, right? They want to fill up their trophy case, and I get it. But for tonight, I'm a little weary. I want to see what the lineup is, and someone's going to have to check in on me to make sure that I haven't blown a gasket if they've got a full starting lineup out there, because they usually won't post that until an hour before the game. But
Alex points out, is tonight I thought tonight wasn't. I was just assuming that's what you guys were saying. Is tonight an MLS match?
Is it an MLS match? Were we mistaken again?
Tom, tonight's an MLS match for FC. It's not a.
It's not.
Really?
Yeah. They play.
It's not an Open Cup match.
So they're playing tonight and then again on Saturday.
Yeah. So they play tonight in New York, and then they play Saturday, here. Wait, they play Saturday here? Oh, they do.
Yeah, they play Saturday at home.
And then
against Chicago.
And then they play next Tuesday?
Tuesday against Pittsburgh.
That's the Open Cup match.
Boy, I'll tell you.
Man.
I mean, I'd have to be like Scott Boras and go get a doctor in pharmacy and have to go get a law degree just to figure out what in the hell's going on with FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, Alex actually brings up a really good point. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because it's like, whoop. I'm not even going to try to do it because it's really
They're
difficult.
missing some good dude.
They lost the guy on yellow cards.
That's the biggest. That's got to be one of the stupidest rules in sports. I would love for somebody that really knows the game to explain that to me.
Well, you get 5 in a row, 5 yellows in a row or something like that. I think it's 5.
Well, yeah. But I understand, like, the rule. I mean the reasoning behind it. So what? You get some yellow cards and you get suspended?
I think some yellow cards are pretty ticky-tacky as well.
Yeah, half of them in that sport are flops.
Yeah.
You know what I've realized?
I mean, come on. Did you see – I get back to the lacrosse thing again. Did you see any of the national championship game between Notre Dame and Duke?
No, I did not.
All right. Notre Dame has these two brothers. Last name Kavanaugh.
Yeah, their brother played in 2014 against Duke.
Okay. In the semifinal game, one of these Kavanaugh guys gets hit in the head and splits his eye wide open. He goes to the sideline. Do they say, you might want to sit down? No. They stitch him up back in the game. In the championship game, less than 48 hours later, the single dirtiest play I've maybe ever seen in sports, and I've seen a lot of bad ones. This Duke guy leads with his helmet, much like you see a football wide receiver, the same guy who had his eye split open, right? The Duke guy leads with his helmet, hits this guy right in the helmet, knocks the helmet off. And down is this kid from Notre Dame. He wasn't down 10 seconds. In lacrosse, it was a 2-minute penalty. In your sport, you'd have been thrown out of the league for a week. Yellow card.
You know what I've realized?
Come on, Casey. Yellow card.
You know what I've realized?
Give me a break. Yellow card.
Yellow card, you don't get.
I'm not saying you ought to be able to go hit guys and dirty stuff, and thank you very much. But, I mean, come on. Come on. When's the last time, and I'm not advocating this, when is the last time you saw a soccer player not get injured? I'm not saying that. I don't mean that they turn their knee or they roll their ankle or something. I don't mean that. When's the last time you saw any of those guys have any physical contact of any kind?
You know what I've realized the more and more and more I've seen these guys like really watch the sport in the last year and a half or so? Because this doesn't happen in college. It happens in the pros.
Yes, I know where you're going.
It's just a timeout. That's all it is. They get down, the guys come over, they get some water. It's just a timeout. And honestly, that has helped me kind of accept the whole flopping thing a whole lot more. Because that's all it is. It's just a timeout. That gives the guys an opportunity to come over, get some water, catch their breath. Then the guys get back up and they're fine.
Did you see this from Alexandria?
Yes, I saw.
This is a woman you're marrying in 3 days.
Yeah, she's just exposing me all over.
She just said, quote, Casey fakes it till he makes it. Now, what in the hell does that mean?
Well, you should just read her next chat.
Well, let me scroll down. Gets all of his info from my dad and me.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So is that true?
That's about 75% true.
I didn't mean to throw you under the bus, Casey. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh,
it
my
happens.
God. PB's ghost. I'm telling you, this dude is climbing. He is right there.
Someone's got to be.
He is all over it.
Someone in this group has got to be the soccer guy. And I have taken the challenge. I've taken the torch. And I'm trying to lead the charge. And all I can do is be a fan. So, I might not be the expert.
Stick to your guns, Casey.
I might not be the expert, but I do watch. And I've got opinions.
There's no doubt about that. I give you credit for that. All the credit in the world. Hey, look. Paul and I aren't the ones beating you down. Your bride in roughly a little over 72 hours, 96 hours, is the one that's beating you down.
She loves beating me down.
Boy, I'll tell you. You have just reached the same level as ex-professionals. I thought it was impossible. Paul, any thoughts?
No, I got no thoughts.
No thoughts.
Casey speaks for himself.
I mean, guys are killing you. You want to repeat that or no? You'd rather not?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
Just for her sake.
Wedding line is going down to +5 hundo. Why isn't that up there in our scroll? There's some ridiculous thing up there about Marymount Lacrosse, the +22.5, whatever it is. I saw that come there a minute ago. That's the over-under. Yeah, I know that's the over-under, but I'm saying we know that's not legit. So why isn't there a Casey wedding line?
That is one joke that we talk about all the time. Like, it's in the chat. I'm surprised we never put it in the ticker. I mean, it might as well be on the Betfred app. You might want to check. It might be on there. Who knows?
Alexandria chimes in one more time. Oh, now she's going to, of course.
Give me some praise, right?
Of course.
She does that.
Casey's come a long way from his get rid of the offsides rule opinion.
You know what she's doing? She's doing that. Here's some praise, and then here's the criticism, and then the praise.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, it's that sandwich that they talk about in couples counseling. She's trying to do that right now.
You've already done couples counseling?
You know what you're supposed to. Have you done some of that? I applaud you if you have.
No, we have not.
Well, I think that is a very important thing. I would recommend that very much for people before they get married. I'm being totally serious about this.
I've heard that advice many times.
I think there are certain topics that you think you kind of cover, but the people in that role who know some of the questions to ask to find out, wow, I didn't know my wife to be felt like that. I mean, you'll talk about kids, which you want to have kids one day, but then you start talking about, okay, well, if we had kids and I had a job making enough money for both of us, would you want to be a stay-at-home mom? And then you start getting into all kinds of things that are really deep, topical discussions that are quite healthy for a man and wife to be in this case. Alexandria, the real nut cutter. That's from PB's Ghost. That guy right now, as we sit here on End of Show Wednesday, he is by far the leader in the clubhouse.
For sure. He's always on top of my list. He's always witty.
Okay. Jolly says his couples counselor is his bartender. That's always an option. Not a bad one. Okay, Casey, so this is it.
This is it. This is my last day on the shows before I get married.
He's not on the show for another 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
I'll be gone for a while, chat.
You're going to get a lot of Reed and I for the next 2 weeks.
I'll be in the chat from time to time.
No, you better not be, Casey. What the hell are you talking about, dude?
Well, maybe I won't be in the chat.
I don't think you're in the chat the next week. Alexandria, do not let him be in the chat the next week and a half.
Definitely not. Casey, from the bottom of my heart, I am very, very happy for you. I'm very excited for you, for both of you, and for your families. And God bless you too, with a love that lasts a lifetime and for all eternity.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Paul, any final words from you, sitting next to the old boy?
I'm happy for you, Casey. I'm looking forward to Saturday. Keep it at that, because I'll see you then.
Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
All right. Cherry on top or no? Or are we just going to box lunch?
We're going to box lunch.
Let's go to box lunch. Reed, you have any? Well, you'll have time during your show.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say to Casey?
Plug your mic in.
Might help.
That better?
Yep, that's better.
There it is.
Okay, yeah, you'll have time. I mean, I feel like I say this 3 days a week. Elliot, by the way, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I was waiting for your co-host maybe to jump in.
Yeah, I was waiting for an introduction as well, but no.
When did I just turned on my mic, Tom. You're getting on me about talking. I just had the functionality to talk a second ago. This is the zebra. This is Elliot. Elliot, welcome to Chatterbox.
Thank you. It's an honor. I'm still learning, the ways of Hamilton. What is a nut cutter? What is that?
Ooh, he doesn't know what a nut, Tom. You dubbed Nut Cutter Nation.
Nut cutting time is where that derives. So you're in nut cutting time. You're Jimmy Butler in Game 7. What are you going to do? You delivering the goods, right? And it can be in the short term. It can be to be on the first team. It's got to be the long term. I mean, nut cutting time. Are you delivering the goods? From Kurt Schilling, Steph Curry. LeBron is in that category for sure. There are others. Tom Brady.
So when it comes for
you can have great players, but so many guys, they disappear when it matters.
So when Casey's reading his vows, he's going to be a nut cutter.
Well, no, we're going to find out.
We're going to see.
We're going to find out how things go. It's easy now.
That's
when
nut
you're
cutting
engaged.
time.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Easiest thing in the world's being engaged. Everything's great. I mean, everything's really good. Let's see about 3, 4, 5 years in. Find out how we're looking. My case, 22 years in. All right. What do you got coming on today, big boy?
I got to defend my attire again, Tom.
I mean, you're getting killed. They're saying this is a youth extra large.
It's not the shirt this time. It's my shorts.
Yeah, what do they call those? Booty shorts.
They dubbed my shorts nut cutters. They're on me. Always, Tom. That's what I love. Love to hear it.
Your buddy Mouse Cop said a child in Indonesia did not make that shirt for 5 cents just so Reed could squeeze into a small.
I love
Mouse Cop. All right, boys. I am certainly hoping I can come in here tomorrow and report that Marymount got a win, because with all the kidding around we do and everything, I talked about it a little bit the other day. When you get in the tournament and your son or daughter is a senior in whatever it is that they do, and they've made the decision they're not going to play beyond high school, and he made that decision, and God bless him. you just never know if it's the last time you're going to see him play. So I'm hoping they can find a way to win as an underdog tonight and have at least one more practice tomorrow. That's what we're hoping for.
Good luck to the Warriors.
Thank you.
And
We'll
Luke.
We'll be there with bells on. Time now for Box Lunch. Here we go.
I must admit, I didn't think much of this show the first time I laid eyes on it. Seemed like a bunch of stiffs wasting nice
The worst
microphones.
trade of all time happened back in 1803. Go ahead. Napoleon Bonaparte traded the Louisiana Purchase for $3 million. Napoleon, what happened? Half the country for $3 million. You can't even get Tucker Barnhart for $3 million.
Then I came to realize
anymore.
these guys are funny.
And Justin Fields have identical stats the last 5 weeks about throwing the football. This guy, okay,
And
folks,
are
is a
some of the
fidget
best
spinner.
gamblers I've come to know.
If you're betting on USC and or TCU, let it be known you are a square.
TCU is going to hammer this team tomorrow night.
I hate to hear that.
Tomorrow
when we come back
afternoon.
in here on Monday, you're going to be happy as a lark because USC lost, but you're going to be wrong about TCU.
Get ready for the most useless hour of your day. It's time for Boxed Lunch, presented by Betfred Sportsbook. Now, Casey, run that track.
Did you steal that song from your DJ on Saturday? That'll get the people out on the dance floor. Casey, are we going to get the trifecta of wedding songs? Which is the Electric Slide, the Cupid Shuffle, and the Cha-Cha Slide. Are we getting all three of those from the DJ on Saturday?
I imagine so. I don't see why we would.
Are we going to get...
We're definitely going to do some Cotton Eye Joe.
Ooh, Cotton Eye Joe. I forgot about that one. Are we getting the Wobble?
Probably. I would imagine we're doing some wobble.
Because nothing gets the people going like just here, get in there. Yeah, get in there.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this is Box Lunch presented by Betfred Sportsbook. We got a full house tonight. Of course, I'm Reed. Got the Ham and Eggers, Casey, and Paul. And over here we got Elliot and Jacob, as always, newcomers to the show, and we'll get to Elliot in a little bit. But first, I have something to say. Over the weekend, Reds played the Cubs, and, I've quickly become a pariah in the chat. On this chat, Chatterbox Reds chat, on Twitter. And it's well-deserving. I reap what I sow, right? I mean, I make jokes about how bad the Reds have been in recent years, and I often go on these lengthy rants, pretty much just pointing the Reds at the base of the joke. And I try to do it in all good and fun, but, there is a part of me that does mean all these things. And I do this despite everyone I love, pretty much everyone I know, being Reds fans. This is the route I've chosen, and I've talked a big game. And when the Reds go into Wrigley Field and sweep my beloved Cubs, the Cubs get swept by the Reds, a team I've been poking at for months. I have to sit here with humility and humbly honor all that I deserve and all the ridicule I deserve, and just honor the Reds, honor what happened. So, Casey, let's show how we're going to honor the Reds. Look at that. Oh, Casey, right there, baby. Hang the banner. Congratulations to the Cincinnati Reds. Right next to the Big Red Machine in the wire-to-wire, you've got that you swept the Cubs in May of 2023. I just wanted to honor you guys and all the Reds fans and all the Cincinnati Reds slappies that come at me for my attire, come at me when the Cubs lose, everything. I just wanted to honor you guys. So right there, put it up there at Great American Ballpark. You've deserved that. Good job, guys. Good job. All right. Let's go to the man of the hour. It's Elliot Rearing.
That graphic made me sick.
Did it make you sick?
Yeah, that was horrendous.
You didn't like that?
Now what would you rather have, that banner or the one that says 108 years without a World Series win?
There's not a banner at Wrigley Field that says 108 years. There is a banner. There is a 108-year gap between two banners, 1908 and 2016.
Yeah.
But you know what? Honestly, when it comes to the Cubs, everyone makes fun of 108 years, and that's crazy that they went 108 years without winning a championship. The crazier thing is that they went 43 years without making the postseason. They went from 1945 to 1998. So what is that? That's 53.
That's
no,
good.
1984. My bad. So 1945 to 1984. So 39 years without making the postseason, which is worse.
It's pretty incredible.
And then they went 1908 to 2003 without winning a postseason series.
Yep.
So what a long time. But Elliot, how does it feel to be a part of Chatterbox Sports?
It's a great honor. I'm happy to be here. I've been learning. My first day was yesterday. I was still figuring out where to park. I parked about 2 miles down the street over there. We had Reed and Paul getting valet service in front of the building. I was parking down the street. I think my car got broken into. But other than that, it's been awesome. It's been awesome to be a part of you guys so far for 2 days. A day and a half, really.
We do not get valet service here in Hamilton because if you open up my center console,
yeah,
you'll see about 8 parking tickets in there. I let my wife borrow my truck last week because she had to go grab something from Sam's Club, and I get a call, and she's just hysteric. She's like, "You're gonna get arrested, Reed. I mean, this is absolutely insane. They could have a warrant out for your arrest." I was like, "All right, honey, like I'm not gonna get arrested for parking tickets."
No.
And I talked to a couple cops. They're like, "Yeah, I mean, like if you get pulled over, they might if there's enough parking tickets." So we've got to get those squared
They're
away.
optional. Those are optional to pay. Those are optional.
Got to get those squared away. As you join Chatterbox, what are you most excited about joining this weird and wonderful world of Chatterbox
well,
Sports?
my number one thing was learning what it was to be a nut cutter. So we
good.
checked that one right off.
Right.
The other one, I'm going to try to beat you guys in gambling. I'm a notorious gambler. I'm a horrendous gambler.
Doesn't take too much to beat these two.
Yeah, but you haven't seen me gamble yet. I'm bad, but I'm still going to try. And that's what it's going to be. It's going to be so sweet to beat you three, as bad of a gambler as I am. It's just going to be more insulting to you guys. Let's see what else. I'm really excited to get to be a part of the show with Tom Brennaman, legend of the baseball community, of the broadcast community.
Correct.
I work with some legends over there at ESPN 1530. So legends and me just go hand in hand. Let's see what else do I got? UC Xavier. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Me versus Paul.
That's right.
Unfortunately, that rivalry hasn't gone my way for quite some time.
Are you University of Cincinnati graduate?
I am. I went to Toledo first. I went to the University of Toledo.
TOO.
Yeah, go
TOO.
That's right. Go Rockets. I transferred back once I realized what a great place Toledo was, and then so we graduated from Cincinnati. And that's respect to Toledo. I respect that's all due respect to the great city of Toledo.
In all honesty, I haven't been to many college football stadiums, but two that I've always liked. I love the Glass Bowl up there in Toledo.
Yep.
That's a fun stadium.
It's a great one.
And then Nippert. So you got a good one. Nippert's
How about that?
Nippert's look cool. Look at you, just going to the great football stadiums. It's awesome. Now, is it going to be okay between you two sitting so close, between a St. X guy and an Elder guy?
Yeah, us elder guys, we keep it respectful. I don't know how they operate over there, but we're top tier. We know how to operate with our foes and be respectful and be humble. Them, not so much, but that's okay. I'll be the better man, and he'll be there.
Doesn't seem too respectful over there.
Why not?
A lot of backhanded compliments on day one.
No. Those are real compliments. I'm complimenting you guys. You guys are, you guys take pride in being the best, self-proclaimed. So that's good.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Who is the most hated GCL South school?
Elder.
That's wrong. What an incorrect take. It's LaSalle. Nobody goes to LaSalle. Nobody likes LaSalle. And again, that's all due respect to LaSalle.
I don't think there's any respect to LaSalle there.
Just let me clarify. With all due respect to the great school of LaSalle, they're terrible and no one likes them. That's
no
my
pushback
opinion.
from me.
Jacob immediately, I said, who is the worst school in the GCL South? He immediately said Elder.
Well, I think St. X, Moeller, and LaSalle would all three agree that it's Elder.
That's
wrong.
Elder.
That's just wrong. We have the best cheers. Have you heard our cheers?
Yeah, you knocked me out of the state championship playoffs my senior year. I got a little pent-up aggression in here. I've heard your cheers.
St. X says nothing. I'll tell you what St. X does. I used to play tennis. They have great tennis courts.
Great tennis courts.
Great swim facility.
Best in the country.
What's
They do rowing.
What do you call a swim facility?
A swimming pool.
Natatorium. Great natatorium.
Keating Natatorium.
Yeah, it's great.
Beautiful place.
All the state championships up on the wall, 28 straight or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, water polo.
Yeah.
You're the only water polo within 500 miles.
Something
only
like-
water polo
and
team.
we win.
And you win.
And we win.
You beat nobody, but you win because you're the only one there. I like it, though. I respect it. What high school did you go to?
Stephen T. Baden High School.
That's right, Baden. The other GCL.
The lesser.
The lesser. The one that nobody really cares about. Respectfully.
Respectfully.
Is that because there's girls go to the school? You guys misogynistic?
No. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Tread lightly. Tread lightly.
There was girls at Elder once. Just a little fun fact for you. A long time ago.
Never girls at X.
That's
Never.
right. So they're the ones. They're bad.
Elliot's been on this show for 14 minutes and he's already canceled.
No, I'm not canceled. Can't cancel the zebra.
Can't cancel a zebra. Or an Okapi?
Okapi. Yeah,
Okapi.
The zoo was great. When was the last time you went to the zoo, Reed?
When was the last time I went to the zoo?
Yeah.
Was probably my 8th grade field trip.
Okay. So that was pre-Harambe?
That was pre-Harambe, correct. That would have been 2010.
Interesting. Harambe died after you went there, huh?
6 years later. I'm the plague.
You'd hate to put the connections, but you know.
I would hate to see where you're at in 2029, Elliot. Hate to see where you're at. All right, let's get back to sports. All right, guys. So, and this is me putting away the red shtick. I swear, there's no joke at the end of this, guys. Last night, so Ellie De La Cruz is the number 1 prospect in baseball. I last night pulled up an aggregate of all the different number 1 prospects over the past years, over the past 20 years or so. And I actually got sad because I've had to come to grips with the fact that as a Cubs fan, I'm going to have to deal with the problem that is Ellie De La Cruz for at least 6 years. Let me give you the list of number 1 prospects over the last 20 years, because this entire list maybe has one stinker in it, maybe has one guy who didn't pan out to at least be a good player. So this is the list. Gunnar Henderson for the Baltimore Orioles, still waiting to see what he is. Bobby Witt has shown so much promise over the year and a half that he's played for the Royals. So now we're going into people that we've actually seen a little bit of. Adley Rutschman, maybe already the best catcher in baseball. Wander Franco, incredible. Vladdy Jr., Shohei Ohtani, Ronald Acuna Jr., and then we got Andrew Benintendi, who's been okay. Corey Seager, Chris Bryant, Byron Buxton, Bryce Harper, Jason Hayward, Matt Wieters, Jay Bruce, Daisuke Matsuzaka, Joe Mauer, Mark Teixeira. Essentially, what I'm getting at is that the list of number 1 prospects is about as sure of a thing in Major League as we have seen, at least over the past few decades. And I'm truly having to come to grips with the fact that he's going to be good for a while. So as the Reds organization, there's a lot of talk. When's Ellie going to come up? When's Ellie going to come up? The Reds have now won 4 straight games. Guys, do you think that the Reds need to bring him up this weekend for the homestand? Strike while the iron's hot. The Reds are playing well. They're in shooting distance of the division, and you're bringing the division leader in, and the Brewers sell tickets this weekend. Is it time that the Reds should bring Ellie De La Cruz up?
Well, so here's the thing, in my opinion. They don't need to sell tickets this weekend. They got Zach Brown. They got the Joey Votto bobblehead. Sundays are always fine. I don't think they need to sell tickets this weekend. So if anything, I would kind of argue the opposite on that maybe you don't bring him up this weekend because you've already accomplished the tickets goal. Maybe you do it on a weekend where you don't have everything going on.
What about the play, though, and the fact that you bring the division leader in?
But you do bring the division leader in. You are guaranteed to have a full crowd. So maybe that's why you bring him up.
All right.
I see both sides of the coin on that.
Jacob Elliott?
Yeah, Reed, you hit it there for me. Ticket sales, I'm done with ticket sales.
Don't care.
There's 1,000 people at the games during the week. I'm not calling LA up for ticket sales. We have 3 games against the Brewers. We win all 3. If we finish this series strong against the Red Sox, even split these 2, then play these 3 games against the Brewers, there's a legitimate chance we could leave this weekend in first place of the NL Central. And Elly De La Cruz gives us the best chance to do that. Where are you going to play him? Sure, I get that. He's played a lot of third base. You can play him at third base. You don't have to move Jonathan India yet. You play McClain at shortstop. You play Spencer Steer at first. Nick Senzel comes back healthy. Move him out to left. You have a good lineup, good, exciting lineup for a guaranteed sellout on Friday with Zach Brown concert. Joey Votto bobblehead on Saturday. A lot of butts and seats. I don't know. I think it's the perfect weekend to bring him up.
Elliot, any push?
If your goal is to win games, if your goal is to be competitive, you bring up Elly De La Cruz. If your goal is to trust the process and this year's a wash year and at the deadline we're going to sell some more, then no, you don't. If that's what Krall believes in, then that's what they're going to do. But if your goal is to be competitive, you bring him up right now. You bring him up as soon as possible and you try to win the division. And it's a very winnable division.
If he comes up, they bring Elly up. And obviously Matt McClain just was announced National Player of the Week. So in his first few weeks in the bigs has shown so much potential. Seen so many good signs that Matt McClain's going to be a ball player for years to come. If Elly De La Cruz comes up and starts playing well, starts playing at a similar clip or even better of Matt McClain, the rumors that we're hearing about Jonathan India, the rumors that we're hearing about Nick Senzel, if McClain and Elly keep producing, if Elly comes up to the big leagues and produces, does it make you feel worse or better? Does it push you in the direction of wanting to trade Jonathan India and Nick Senzel, or does it make you want to say, let's keep these guys? We've got a good thing going here. We've got a good roster. Where does it push you if Elly De La Cruz lives up to expectations and Matt McClain keeps playing well?
Well, I think first and foremost, Nick Senzel and Jonathan India are 2 completely different situations.
Okay.
Jonathan India, I would love to have him on the Reds. I think Nick Senzel is as good as gone at the deadline. So I'm not really worried about moving Nick Senzel around if Elly comes up. If Elly comes up and he plays well right away, the way he's playing in AAA, I think Jonathan India is gone at the deadline. You have your middle infield for the next decade, hopefully, with McClain at second and Elly at short. McClain had 5 errors in AAA at shortstop and none at second base. He's a very fluid second baseman. I don't think that change is hard at all. I think if Elly comes up and produces right away, it makes the decision a lot easier on Jonathan India.
So you're saying if they play well, and say the Reds are playing exciting baseball, you still want to see, you go, hey, we've got our middle infield from here going forward. I don't see a scenario in which Jonathan India fits on this team anymore. Let's get rid of him.
I don't see, granted, could be wrong. Jonathan India could just buy in and want to be a Red. I don't see a situation where he accepts a move to the outfield. He's a good enough second baseman that one of the 29 teams, Scott Boras touched on it today, one of the 29 teams in the league are going to pay him as a starting second baseman. And, granted, just the way the baseball standings look, they're probably a more competitive team than the Reds.
Right.
So I don't see the benefit for Jonathan India to move to the outfield, DH all the time, when, we have 2 young guys that are going to start over.
Elliot, same question. If they play well, Elly and Matt McClain keep playing well, are you pro moving India, or do you think that there's something to this team now and you want to keep the talents that you do have?
You keep India on the roster. I don't see a point of moving Jonathan India. He's the leader of the team. And at some point, you have to keep the guys that people pay to see. I know people don't like to hear that, but fan favorites do exist. And the Reds have made it a long-standing thing to trade all the fan favorites. Nick Senzel is tradable. If this is the time you trade Nick Senzel. He's an injury-prone guy. He's injured right now. Let him work it out until the trade deadline. He's hitting, 400 against lefties?
He's the best left-handed bat in the league right now.
If we're going to trade people, trade Nick Senzel. Get rid of him now while you can. You keep Jonathan India. You move him so McClain and Elly can prosper. But other than that, there's a DH spot available. Obviously, I think Strand will probably go there. Steer will go to first. India maybe at second. I would think Elly could go to third base. Keep McClain at short, Elly to third. Elly has the arm. That's what I would do. If Elly De La Cruz has the arm, has the athletic ability to play short, I think he would be a great third baseman. You keep Matt McClain at short, India at second, Steer at first.
Does India's defensive struggles at second base scare you at all?
Yeah, but if you move him to the outfield, that doesn't help that. He would be worse in the outfield, in my opinion. You would have to worry about his arm. You'd have to worry about catching fly balls, which he struggles with in the infield. But I don't think he's a horrendous second baseman. He's not like the worst of all time. Fernando Tatis was a terrible shortstop. Terrible. He couldn't field a ball. They moved him to right field. He's not great there either. Now, granted, it's a completely different thing because he's Fernando Tatis, juiced, but whatever. I think India has to remain on this roster no matter what. If he's a mediocre second baseman, and that's the other thing, defense, as much as defense matters on this Reds team when we're fighting and scrapping for every win. Defense doesn't matter when you're the Tampa Bay Rays, when you're 26-5 or whatever they were. I don't think defense matters as much as offense, and right now India is one of the best offensive second basemen in Major League Baseball.
There's no doubt about that he's one of the best offensive second basemen. But defensively, last year, just looking at his Baseball Reference page, he was a negative 1.3 defensive WAR, so he cost the team at least one win in theory, defensively. And here, a third of the way through the season, which is right around where we're at, he has on pace to be a -1 defensive WAR again at second base. So him at second base doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think part of the narrative around moving him in lines with convincing another team that he is their second baseman. The numbers don't, here in Cincinnati, we've seen that. I don't think that there's a whole lot of convincing that he's going to be the second baseman of the future, especially with all the talent. The only way that he fits on this roster going forward is playing somewhere in the corner outfield, finding a new spot for him, which then you could argue that offensively he doesn't have as much value there. So, Paul, before you left and went to wherever you went, didn't want to say go to the restroom because I don't know where you went. But before that happened,
I sympathize with Tom, man. I started pounding this water. I just can't. I can't keep it in anymore. All right, go ahead.
I posed the question: if Ellie comes up and is fantastic, lives up to the hype that they have for him, Matt McClain keeps doing what he's doing, which has been fantastic. Does that push you wanting to move? Because I know your take yesterday was keep India. If Ellie and Matt McClain keep playing the way that we think they're going to play, keep living up to hype, does that push you into wanting to move India, or does that make you want to keep him even more because now you're adding to the talent that you have?
Yeah, I want to keep him even more. And the thing that I keep struggling with here is that we're talking about a Reds team that is still below 500, that is not in first place, that could be in first place. But we're talking about this team like they have some embarrassment of riches, and there are not smart enough people in the world to figure out how to make this work. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about the 27 Yankees here. We're talking about a team that has some really, really good, potentially generational guys in AAA that are hoping work out at the major league level. There's got to be somebody smart enough in this organization to figure out how to make all of this work. This is not like you have Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Ellie De La Cruz and all these dudes all on the same team. We're talking about prospects that are coming up that you are trying to slot in to figure out how to make a successful team out of. So that's where, to me, I just get so frustrated looking at this, where I'm thinking to myself, this is not a lineup of guys right now. They could be in 10 years, but right this second, this is not a lineup of guys that is 6 of the 9 guys are Hall of Famers. This is a lineup of guys that are really, really good in AAA, that are number 1 prospects who pretty much always, for the most part, will pan out, at least
in some entity.
In some way will pan out. They might not be a Hall of Famer, but they will be very good for your team.
If the worst is Andrew Benintendi or Jerkison Profar, it's a pretty good list.
Yeah. So, let's figure out a way to make all of this work instead of saying, an all-star second baseman? Yeah, we don't got any room for him. Let's trade him away. What?
So you like the proven entity. What's the old phrase? 1 in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Yeah. To me, on a team like this, and I think Elliot makes a great point about there's something to be said about fan favorites, and maybe somebody doesn't go buy a ticket to see Jonathan India play. Maybe they're not going to go out of their way to buy a ticket to watch him play, but you trade him, and then it just becomes even more apathy of, oh, man, I don't want to get attached to somebody because they're just going to trade him away. So I think all of that combined leads to my feeling on all of this.
Just to somewhat piggyback off of what Nick just said in the chat.
Piggyback off it.
I don't see why he can't just split time and be a guy. I mean, to this point, what I'm thinking of, Jonathan India is a lot like, in some regards, to Tyler Boyd, who is now the third receiver. And you could even sometimes argue he's like the fourth guy on the offense, depending on what day you're, So for Jonathan India, would he be willing to split time at second base, DH, give guys breaks, and, be part of a rotation that allows your center field to be always healthy, your infield to always be healthy? I don't know. Maybe he'd be up for that.
I'm convinced Evan Maurer is Matt McClain's burner. Like, nobody hates Jonathan India more than this guy Evan in the chat.
Evan actually, so I get from all the people that tweet me anytime that the Cubs lose and Reds win, Evan is the best because he doesn't send anything with the tweet. He just @ Reed Mouse Radio. Just @ my Twitter just to let me know, like, hey, the Reds won. Hey, the Cubs lost. Whatever it is, he's just like, hey, @ Reed Mouse Radio. Just know I'm in my head. And it works. Like, I get that tweet and I'm like, God damn it. Are the Reds winning right now? What's going on right now? Listen, I think that if you can prove that Jonathan India can play multiple positions, you get him to where he could, like Kirby said in the chat, if you get him to where he can play second, sometimes fill in at third, left, right. What was the analogy that Tom drew yesterday? Chris Bryant. That's what the Cubs did with Chris Bryant. He wasn't a very good fielding third baseman, so they said, all right, we're just going to put you in the lineup every day. You're going to play a different position, and we're just not going to anchor you down at third base. You might play left, right, first, third, whatever it is. If you can do that with Jonathan India, athleticism, versatility is the name of the game. And when you have so many young prospects, so much young talent, you want them all to be as versatile as possible. Yeah, you want Ellie De La Cruz to be anchored down at one position. Yeah, there is a mental note of knowing that you're going to be in the lineup playing this position every day. There is a part of that. But if you can mold Jonathan India into being this guy that can fill in wherever, and he's not going to be good defensively wherever he fills in, but you know he's going to be a reliable bat, and you know that he's serviceable in 2 to 3 positions, keep him around. And I think the whole contingency of the trade India talk relies on what you get. Listen, any of us would sell our car today if we can get $5,000 over the value of it. There's always a price to something, right? And just floating Jonathan India, maybe you get one of these teams that have a deficiency at second base and they're hungry. And you know what? They're going to give you an MLB caliber starting pitcher or an corner outfielder or whatever the Reds might be. There's always a price. It's always funny whenever these GMs go like, yeah, we're hearing offers on so-and-so. You should always hear offers on everybody because there's always a price to everything. And I think that it is a flowing juxtaposition what's going to happen with the Reds going forward. It is contingent on a lot of young players playing well. And to Paul's point, you have the proven entity at Jonathan India. So keep plugging them in, listen to offers, and whatever happens, happens. I think that the Reds and Reds fans are in a position where the right answer is whatever comes out on the other side. If you get good talent for it, great job. If you keep him and he proves to be the same player that he's shown this year and his rookie year, good job. Can't really go wrong. So it's interesting to see. Any more thoughts on Jonathan India before we wrap that up? Elliot, Jacob?
Well, I would just say one thing. A lot of people talk about the India trade like it starts and ends with Ellie De La Cruz coming up. Noelvi Marte is coming up. Edwin Arroyo's coming up. Victor Acosta, who we just got from the Padres, is an 18-year-old shortstop that was signed for big money. I don't know. It's a lot deeper in the middle infield than just Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain. And it's a lot easier to move guys in AA and AAA than it is to move Jonathan India, who is headed towards arbitration and is going to get a big deal.
It is worth mentioning that if you're talking about an asset that is Jonathan India, you can't imagine that asset being more valuable than it is right now.
And that's where I push back a little bit on what Paul said is that, like, he fits in the lineup this year, correct, and he would be great for the team this year. Is his value ever going to be higher? Maybe not. And you get too far down the line, then you have to make a decision whether you pay him or you let him go. I don't know. I think we're in a very weird spot right now where he's a great piece to have on a young team, but his value is also at a point where it might never get higher.
Right.
It comes down to how much you value defense. If you value defense more than you value offense, or at the same rate as offense, then you look to trade him. But like Reed said, you have to get something equal in return. You have to get someone competent that will help this team now. If you're going to get rid of India, and we're going to be competitive in 2025, we have to get somebody that can be competitive now. We can't get more prospects for Jonathan India. I don't want to, unless other people do. It's just not something you're trying to. We're going to rebuild. You have to build at some point. So trade India. If you're going to trade him, I want somebody that can help the team now. It doesn't have to be, it can be a very good reliever. The India stock is at its complete peak right now.
That is a good point that you just brought up about the prospects, trading Jonathan India for prospects. Because I think if you talk to some people here, we're in the infancy of this whole Jonathan India, should we trade him debate, that we start thinking about, like, well, yeah, if we get elite prospects, let's trade him. Let's do it right now. But if you trade away Jonathan India for elite prospects, you're pushing back the window another year. You're pushing back when you want to compete even farther, because you got a young all-star player, and you're trading him for, what could be even better returns in those prospects, but that's going to rely on more time. So by trading him for prospects, you're pushing back the window. I think 2025 is what everyone's seeing. I don't think it's out of the picture to start thinking about competing next year with how bad the division is, with what we've seen from the team already, playing way above what we expected. Who knows? It's going to be an interesting couple months going forward for the Reds. And I think no one can deny that.
I'm really interested to see what they do if the Reds are still hanging around in like the middle to end of July, because they're mirroring the Orioles from last year so closely, where the Orioles last year, the last week of July, first week of August, their playoff odds were dropping. They were right there on the cusp of competing for a spot. And then their general manager, Mike Elias, came out and he said, hey, look, we're going to be patient with this. We understand where we are, but we also know that now we got to go spend on major league talent, because our guys are starting to come up, Adley and a couple other guys, and some of these prospects are starting to come up to the major leagues. So I'm kind of curious to see if we're sitting here on July 20th, you're getting closer to the trade deadline, if the Reds, if they're, 3 games out of first place, if they say, no, look, we still have the plan for this year. We just want to get guys going through, and then 2024, maybe we are a year ahead of schedule, because everybody seems to think that we're going to compete in 2025. But maybe we are a year ahead of schedule, and we go and we get somebody, but you're not trading for guys, and you just kind of ride out this wave of momentum. But at least now it's May 31st, and we're actually still talking baseball, which I don't think any of us expected to be doing at this point.
Nick Kirby just brought up a great comment in the chat. He says, we need to stop looking at windows. You do that by constantly acquiring talent. I think it was Nick Krall last year that said, we are trying to eliminate peaks and valleys. We're just going to continually be good. This is what the Dodgers have seen. And the two teams that constantly get compared to where the Reds are at right now were the Cubs and the Astros about a half decade ago, right? And what happened to those two franchises? One of those franchises continuously kept acquiring talent. We're talking about the Astros. You bring up Jose Altuve, George Springer, all these guys, but then you supplement it with more talent. Yordan Alvarez, Tucker, Framber Valdez, these guys that are young, and you keep reloading. The Dodgers have seemingly found this for over a decade. The Cubs didn't do that. They focused on a window, got rid of everything that they had, and now we're seeing the receipts of those decisions. So Kirby brings up a great point. If you keep bringing in talent, your problems go away. You keep getting good players, your problems go away. Which just adds another fold into the same thing that we're arguing. All right, let's flip over to football, because I'm so good at segues. Let's just do it that way. So about a week ago, or a little bit of time ago, someone, I forget who reported on it, talked about Joe Burrow's contract, because that seems to be a point of contention. What's going to happen with Joe Burrow? When's he going to get extended? And it was proposed that Joe Burrow might be the first player to sign a contract to where it's not a guaranteed value. It's not you're getting $50 million, $40 million. You get a percentage of the salary cap. So as the salary cap keeps moving up, so does your pay. In my personal opinion, when I first saw this, before I saw this headline, was whatever Joe Burrow gets, I'm cool with. 50 million, 45 million, 60 million, I don't care. Right? The dude has a stranglehold over this city. We believe in him, giving full trust into Joe Burrow, JB9. But part of that was under the realization that these big contracts, the salary cap essentially goes up every year, every couple years, to where Patrick Mahomes' huge deal that he signed a couple years ago, the biggest the sport had ever seen, has already gone to the wayside amongst other quarterback contracts. And where you're giving, say you're giving him $60 million. $60 million in year one of Joe Burrow's contract doesn't look the same as 10 years down the road. It is minuscule to the portion of the salary cap. So when I heard this headline, when I saw this headline that Joe Burrow might get a percentage of the salary cap, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but that was the first time that I heard any news about Joe Burrow's contract that I said, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I hope that doesn't happen. That is the only way in which I will be upset with what happens going forward with Joe Burrow. Now, Casey, you haven't had a whole lot to talk. If Joe Burrow gets what has been reported, a percentage of the salary cap, where do you fit on, how does that make you feel as a Bengals fan?
Well, it really just depends on the percentage, right? Because let's say they decide, you know what, Joe, we're going to do percentage of the salary cap. You're only going to probably make $40 million this year, but by the time 3 years from now, that percentage, you're going to be making 60 because the salary cap in the next couple years goes from 230 or 250 to like 280 the next couple years. So, it depends on what that number is, right? Because it could end up working out where it's like a backloaded contract, but you're still giving the same piece of the pie to fit for the rest of your team. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So it just depends on the proportion, but it would lead me to believe that he would want something that is closer to market value right now, which is market value is what, 55 million, somewhere around there?
Yeah, probably 55, maybe even 60.
So what makes you think that it wouldn't start at whatever percentage 55 million is for the first year and then work as that percentage? As the salary cap goes up, so does his contract.
Well, for one, I don't think the salary cap percentage thing is going to happen because the NFL would just hate it. They would hate it because, one, the contract is not defined. You don't have numbers there to work with. It's a fluctuating thing. The salary cap could tank if there's another COVID season. You know what I mean? It fluctuates, right? It's not a defined number. They have projections, but if the NFL does bad one season, if they continue to have Bud Light as their beer sponsor, maybe they tank, I don't know. No. I'm just saying, those things are not defined, so that's why I don't think the NFL will go that direction. But I would not mind it depending on the percentage of the pie, right? Now, with Joe Burrow in year one, probably getting top money, at least for a short time before Mahomes probably leapfrogs him and, they start that whole process over again.
Mm-hmm.
It would be tough if it was percentage, man. That you're really pigeonholing the team with that. And with all the conversations that have been had with Joe Burrow wanting the guys to be signed, Jamar Chase and T, all that in the future, I just don't see that happening. I would be surprised and I would be shocked if he actually did become the highest paid quarterback. If that's all true what he's saying. I would be kind of surprised because just with the amount of money that they're available that they have with them at the current moment, they wouldn't be able to sign T. Higgins if he signs top dollar. They just wouldn't be able to unless T decided that year one he would take hardly any money You know what I mean? Like they would have to work something out there to where it made sense for him, but I just don't see it, man.
Are we putting too much stock in Joe Burrow's, I don't know the proper word here, but I'm going to throw this word out here. It's not correct, but I think you guys get the gist of what I'm going to say here. Are we putting too much stock into Joe's morality? And like we are constantly saying like, oh, he's going to take a team-friendly deal. He has alluded to things along that sorts, but are we just as a city so in love with the man that we're just like, this guy's perfect? Are we the new girlfriend? That the new boyfriend can do no wrong. Joe's the new guy, and he's like, oh, he's so sweet, he's so good, he's so great. When really, I mean, we're all human, we all have flaws. Are we putting too much stock into Joe's morality, into thinking that he's going to take a team-friendly deal?
Yeah, I think that's kind of absurd. He's a professional athlete. He's going to get the best deal possible. And honestly, the Bengals should pay whatever they need. I think Lamar's the highest paid right now, $52 million.
Something around that.
I believe that. Jalen Hurts, $51 million. So I think he's going to get somewhere around the $50 million ballpark. As much as he's going to say he wants to be able to sign everybody else on the team, I don't think that's what's going on behind closed doors.
I think a lot of Bengals fans are talking about a team-friendly deal in the sense of we're going to pay Joe Burrow $40 million a year. That's crazy. We're going to pay Joe Burrow $50+ million a year.
Right.
The team-friendly aspect of it is, how's the cap hit laid out? Is it hitting early? Is it hitting late? Is it spread out over 7 years? And in that case, I do think he could lean team-friendly route just in the sense that he played with Jamar in college. Like, he took a massive step as a quarterback himself with Jamar Chase.
Right.
So I think he would be a little bit more susceptible to a team-friendly deal, but not in the sense of taking tens of millions of dollars off, but in the way the cap is set up. And then for the salary cap percentage thing, just taking a step back and going from like a macro angle on it, I would be even more surprised if the Bengals were pioneers in the contract space than anything. The Bengals are not going to be the first team. Granted, we've made a lot of strides in the last 4 or 5 years.
Where have the Bengals ever been at the forefront of the National Football League?
We've made a lot of strides, but that's a big step to sign someone to the first ever salary cap percentage contract, and I just don't see that happening with Mike Brown still alive.
It is funny. Every year around the trade deadline in the NFL, sports talk in this town, got to talk about something. Oh, the Bengals didn't make any moves. When has that ever been a thing? Like, are we just like? I know we're evolving. The Bengals are evolving as a franchise, but are we just like forgetting who they are? Or like when we start really talking about they should make some trades in the draft, like when has that really ever been a thing? I mean, I know they'd make a few small, minuscule trades, but like first round, moving way up.
Came up to get Jackson Carman.
Great move.
Great track record.
Great move. But that is a fair point. When have the Bengals ever been the pioneer of the landscape of the National Football League at all? Casey?
Well, the Bengals have a good track record with the positions that matter. For sure. I mean, you think about Carson Palmer back in the day. I mean, they paid him top dollar. I mean, they will do whatever it takes to get a guy signed. Now, to Jacob's point, I do think that, and I hope that Joe Burrow's contract is more than 4 years. That is not team friendly.
Right. It's got to be a decade.
7.
I would hope that it would be a decade.
Okay.
That's a lot to ask.
Let me propose something just preposterous. So I've already alluded to that I think in this town we may have fallen a little too in love with JB9. What if I've always thought this with Major League Baseball teams, but never in the NFL. What if the Hamilton County proposed on the next election day the Joe Burrow tax levy to where everyone pays a little bit for Joe Burrow's contract to make sure that he is the highest paid guy in the NFL? Because that, I don't know a whole lot about politics, but I'm certain that people would pay that instantly. People would vote yes automatically, depending on whatever it is. You know, just a property tax or whatever. Hate taxes in this country. Hate taxes in this state. But for some reason, I just am overwhelmingly sure that if the city, the Hamilton County was just like, hey, we're going to do the Joe Burrow levy, it'd pass.
Flying colors.
I don't even think you'd have to go that official. I think if you set up a GoFundMe right now, it would be completed in an hour.
That is illegal NFL-wise.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. I know that's not how it works, guys. But this is hypothetical because this is never going to happen.
Is it?
Yeah, teams are the only ones that can pay the contract money.
Well, I mean, there's always under-the-table deals. We know that happens,
Correct.
right?
We can figure out roundabouts to this.
Joe Burrow signs a $30 million a year contract.
I've never seen any roundabouts in the tax code before. I mean,
yeah. That's a good point, Reed.
I mean, I'm sure if you go to Skyline, you'll see in their receipts there's a little JB9 tax.
Sir Boy Wonder says he'll donate $1,000 right here and right now.
Guaranteed.
All right, I'm going to start a GoFundMe, Sir Boy. Just go ahead and donate $1,000. Don't ask where the money goes, but might go to a trip down to the old Cino for the old
Speaking of scandals.
Yeah, speaking of betting scandals, let's go on. Let's move on. This show has dragged on for
That's a
50.
great transition right there.
We're good at it.
Right into it.
That's what we do so well.
Let's
here.
go.
It's what we've been working on. When the show goes off, we start working on our segues. So betting scandals, guys. So obviously, we talked yesterday on the show. We had Scott Springer on off the bench to talk about what happened at the University of Cincinnati with the director of baseball operations and the assistant coach getting let go, on top of Alabama's coach getting let go, and what has happened over in Iowa now. We are seeing more and more betting scandals. And I'm just going to pose the question to all four of you guys and you in the chat. Are we heading towards the biggest betting scandal in sports history? And you got to remember, there was a team that once threw an entire World Series. You got to remember, we're talking about a guy who's the hit king who can't get into the Hall of Fame because of his betting scandal. Are we heading, as these as these leagues get more and more in bed with the betting industry, and the betting industry is not going anywhere. It makes far too much money. It has grown the popularity of these leagues because people bet on it and watch more. But we are treading lightly. We are tiptoeing, getting closer, inching towards more and more betting scandals. Are we heading towards possibly the biggest betting scandal ever? Are these going to become more commonplace? Or are these going to become to where they are just footnotes and headlines because we are seeing so many of this? Where are we heading as a sports industry as we keep going into this betting world? Do you think we're going to see more scandals? Do you think they're going to be more inflammatory as they go on?
I think there's absolutely going to be. Calvin Ridley, what did he get? He gets suspended for a year for just doing parlays.
Yep.
So I think you're going to see more of that. You're going to see more players trying to do parlays like that. I don't think there will be anything to some huge degree, some elaborate conspiracy. Maybe there will be, but I think there'll be certainly more of that. There'll be more average players trying to bet on their teams to win a game and not realizing that, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. So I think there'll be more. I don't think there will be anything like the Chicago Black Sox. I don't think that'll happen again.
You don't think there'll be teams directly throwing for it?
No. I could see referees. What was the guy?
Eric Lewis had a burner on Twitter.
Yeah, I think there could be referees potentially throwing games, but I don't think that would be, in my opinion, the highest of the scandals.
What does a punter make?
A punter?
Yeah, in the NFL.
What does a punter make in the NFL?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
4 or 5 million? I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on if you're a really good punter or not.
You're in the Super Bowl. You're in any game, actually, on just a normal Sunday. 2 terrible punts.
Yeah.
let it flow through your hands, a la Michigan State, like we saw a couple years ago, or just another terrible punt. That's the decisive matter in a game right then and there. There is incentive. Is all I'm saying.
You know what I'm more concerned about, the more and more that I hear about it, are college kids on props. And I don't think the scandal – I think eventually we're going to hear a scandal of something like – I'm not trying to be overly dramatic here, like somebody's going to get killed or something. But, like, I think there is going to be something with a repercussion for a kid that missed a bet, and maybe he wasn't even in on it. Just – you see all these DMs that these athletes get and all these threats and everything because so-and-so, he missed a free throw and he didn't go over his 10.5 or whatever. I think the bigger scandal is not so much going to be the insider trading or whatever, because I think on a small scale that's just going to keep happening. Right. The Calvin Ridley thing, and these coaches and these players and everybody, they're cracking down on this really hard. Like if the UC situation is to be handled at face value, then what Andy Nagel and Kyle Sprague did was very negligible. We don't know all the details to that.
Right.
We don't know what happened more behind the scenes. But if what we're supposed to read into that is what happened at face value, that they just knew about it and didn't report it and didn't bet on anything and didn't give away any insider trading, then they are so far removed from the situation. All they knew was that they knew about the situation and didn't report it. And they were in a tough spot because they knew about the information because of a travel ball coach, probably who they had recruiting ties with. So then they're caught in between thinking, well, do we want to get this guy in trouble because we might end up recruiting this guy's kids down the line, or do we sit on this information and hope that it doesn't come out? Well, it did come out. Maybe that's not what happened. Maybe there's a lot more to it that we don't know. But if on the surface that is what happened and that's the actual story, then these guys got fired for that. And you're just going to start to see these repercussions like the 41 kids at Iowa. And the other thing about the Iowa kids, too, and I know I'm kind of going on a tangent on this.
No, you're good.
But,
it's good.
But what's going to happen with this is you see these the gambling laws in the NCAA are so archaic right now because they haven't caught up to where we are in 2023 that if you're a college athlete or even if you work for a university directly, you cannot gamble on any NCAA sanctioned sport at the NCAA or professional level. A baseball player in college cannot bet on an NFL game because there is college football. They can bet on NASCAR, they can bet on boxing, they can bet on the UFC. They can't bet on sports that are sanctioned by the NCAA. So what's going to end up happening here is all these kids are going to get suspended, like they did at Iowa, for betting on LeBron James or whatever that they don't have any involvement with. I don't see why they can't update those codes so that a college baseball player could bet on the NFL or bet on the NBA or whatever. Maybe they can't bet on their own sport that they play because maybe they played with a guy that got drafted, went to the league, and then they're friends with him. So I could see that. But then you could say, well, maybe he was friends with a football player, and then he's in the NFL. So like I do see the gray area there. It's tough, but I see the gray area. The problem for me is going to be when you get these college kids that aren't hitting their totals or whatever, and they're 18 or they're 19. They're in a low point in the season, and then they start getting DMs anyway because they didn't hit their point total. That's going to be, to me, where I start seeing the scandal, not so much the throwing games, because that might happen anyway. But I don't think that will change to a degree any more so than we've already seen it. But I think you're going to really start to see players who might not be able to handle that pressure that all of a sudden start getting DMs, and you start saying, oh, man, like, is this guy – what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think you're right. I
think that's the scandal.
Are we going to start hearing stories about, these college kids, they go out to a college bar after a game, whatever. Just, some Kentucky Wildcat basketball player goes to a bar in Lexington and someone starts a fight with him in the bar because he didn't hit his total like you mentioned. Are we going to hear stories like that? Are we going to see things like that? 100%. It's funny you mentioned the archaic rules of the NCAA. Those will change. They have to change. It might be slow because the NCAA is slow to change, but those rules about betting on different sports and stuff like that, those are going to change. I remember when I played Division III college baseball at a terrible baseball school. Like, we were bad. And every year before March Madness, we had a team-wide meeting with the athletic department. And they're like, hey, just so you know, you can't get it on any tournament brackets with money. You start giving money around for the tournament bracket draws, you make your bracket and whatever. Can't get in on that. We'd get banned from the NCAA, or you lose eligibility for the NCAA. It's like, all right, because they're really going to be cracking down on some Bluffton Beaver baseball team for having a little tourney draw, having a March Madness pool, whatever. That went in one year and right out the other, but neither here nor there. But I think you're right. I think we are just getting close to seeing more and more of these things. They're gonna come out regularly. It's not gonna be a scandal anymore. It's just gonna be another headline in the news cycle. Thoughts on betting? Anything to add?
No, I think you guys are right. I think there will be that DM factor where kids are just gonna have to log off social media completely at some point because it's gonna be where people are, either asking for tips or they're threatening people.
Sure.
That's where we're going.
Sure. All right. In the vault.
So I got one before.
This show is sponsored by
let's go.
Betfred Sportsbook. Casey, what do you got for us?
The over on the run total for the Reds game today.
Over on the Reds game.
It's 10.5.
I
know
like
it's
that.
hot.
I like that over.
It's 10.5. But I just did a quick little research here. Boston Red Sox are the second on this analytics page here. They're second in overs at a 61% rate of over. Cincinnati falls at 6 or 7 here at a 57% rate of overs. So just based off of that alone, these teams also like to hit offensively. We have really bad pitching on both sides. Let's see some runs today, right?
See some runs.
See some runs.
We went 2-1 on our not too picky graphic yesterday. So that is 5 and what would that be? 5 and 5 over our last 3 graphics. Hey, but 2 winning cards out of the last 3. So that's what matters.
That's what matters.
Paul, you got anything for us yet? Because I've got one for you. There's just no way in HE double hockey 6 that the Cubs sweep the Rays today. So take the Rays. -145. We beat Shane McClanahan yesterday. That wasn't supposed to happen. Now, Justin Steele is on the mound, but take the Rays, -145 on the money.
I'll go back to the well on the Orioles, -110. Money line.
We love the Orioles. Paul, we're getting close to Paul's Parlay.
Paul's Parlay, Friday.
Paul's Parlay on Friday. That's a teaser. That's what we do best on this show. All right, where are we going to lunch?
I got a real gross one today.
Ooh. Jacob's a hot better.
Oakland Athletics +190 on the money line to complete their first sweep of the last 2 years against the Braves. They won the first 2 games.
So I did this thing today when I was going to talk about different payrolls, and the top 4 payrolls in the MLB have the same record.
Less.
Have slightly worse.
Okay, yeah.
Than the bottom 4 payrolls.
3.
And the only reason that is the case is because the Oakland Athletics are terrible. Like every other 3, the other 3 out of the 4 are over 500. It's the Pirates,
the Padres are like
the Orioles, and the Rays. The Orioles and Rays have the 2 best records in Major League Baseball, and then the Pirates are 500. But
after starting 20-6,
right? It's not good, but it is laughable. The Oakland Athletics sit right now at 12-45. The next lowest win totals are the Royals at 17. So they're 5 games behind the second worst team. Elliot.
I'm actually going to fade Casey. There's something about Dream Weaver. Luke Weaver is the worst pitcher I've ever seen. There's something about the guy where he's just going to go out. He's going to give up 4 runs, sure, but it's going to look good. It's going to be like a quiet. It's like if somebody dropped like a quiet 30 points in an NBA game. He's not good. He's certainly not good, but I don't think he's the worst of all time. He went 6 1/3. Last time out against St. Louis, didn't allow a run.
Great starts.
Miami only allowed 1 run, 5 1/3, 4 runs against the Yankees. I don't know. Dream Weaver season. I'm going Reds under 10.5. Red Sox under 10.5.
One of you guys are going to win.
That's right.
They get
Put a winner on the graphic today.
Unless they get exactly 10.5, which would just be
that would be tough.
I'd trade We'd have a hell of a show tomorrow if they score 10.5 runs.
Everett Henry commented on our segues, which have just been fantastic on this show, by the way, commenting on how we were just talking about the ramifications of gambling in the world of sports. All right, back to gambling, back to where we are. And he also mentioned it's time to vacate those wins. Not a whole lot of them up in Bluffton Beaver U. So don't have to worry about that anytime soon. All right, what we got for lunch? Any suggestions? Elliot, Jacob?
I'm not Paul. I stay loyal to the wheel. So
all right, that is true.
Whoa. True.
Now, Paul is catching a stray right now. I was accused by Mouse Cop, rightfully so, that we don't respect the wheel. Now, listen. I'm going to throw Paul directly under that bus. He pushes us to not respect the wheel.
I respect the wheel, I would say 60% of the time.
It's not high enough.
That's not high enough.
Not high enough. Make sure Jersey Mike's is on there. Jersey Mike sounds good.
Put 2 Jersey Mics on there.
2 double
Jersey Mics.
Double Jersey.
So do you guys rig the wheel? Is this how this works?
No, we don't rig the wheel.
Yeah, you did. There's 10 gold stars up there.
Oh, well, there's a new gold star today.
Nobody eats Gold Star.
So
I don't know 3 people in my life that eat Gold Star.
Casey prefers Gold Star.
That's correct.
Casey ain't the only one.
Whoa.
So have 5 gold stars. Put Jersey Mike's on there.
What are we doing?
A Sonic for Mouse Cop.
I did, yeah.
And
a panda for Paul.
Panda for Paul.
We gotta have it.
I will tell you right now, I'm disrespecting the wheel if we end up at Panda.
Elliot, second day on the job, you got any suggestions for the wheel?
No, I think add another gold star. Let's even it out a little bit.
Oh,
hey, it's
just
5 gold stars.
Throw another one on there.
All right.
Preposterous.
All right.
We're not going to gold star. It's gonna land on something else.
It would be funny.
Here we go. Here we go.
Smell you, Panda.
Come on!
Smell you, Panda.
Oh, is it gold star? I'm shocked.
No. We eliminate him. We eliminate him.
Oh, we eliminate him?
We're going 5 gold stars in a row.
Yeah, this is an eliminator.
Long run here.
Jersey? Oh, no. Oh, no.
Paul, you're not gonna try to call it this time?
Oh, well, I said Panda. Yeah, I have a bad feeling about Panda.
It's crazy.
No.
All right, so there's
All
a
right.
gold star gone.
Gold star with a period gone.
Gold star, Panda, or Sonic. Great options.
Those are great options, except for Sonic. Sonic sucks. Mouse Cop isn't even here.
Oh no.
Yeah, why did we put Sonic in there if Mouse Cop's not even in the chat?
Sebastian, where you at?
Oh man.
Another gold star.
Government names.
Government names.
Sonic.
Sonic, smell ya.
Get that out of here.
Panda's still hanging around a little too long.
Now,
here.
if Panda is
Panda
taken
makes
off,
it out of this,
We still have to spin till the end.
we do have to spin to the end.
stop. Stop.
All right, we're going to
All
gold
right.
star. We still gotta see.
Well, you still gotta spin it.
We gotta spin
don't
the
know.
wheel. We gotta know which gold star to go.
Gold
to.
star?
We're going
Gold
to
star or gold star?
Yeah.
If it lands on the question mark, do we have to try it again? Nope.
We don't have jollies enough on this chat, and Jolly was in the chat today.
Oh, there's Mouse Cop. Well, it's all right. Well, we went to Gina's yesterday. We took Elliot and Jacob to Gina's yesterday for their introduction to Hamilton.
All right, this is for the one that we're going to.
Oh,
Gold star! Get excited about it.
Star.
Get excited about it, guys. It's a great show. The final show of May. Tomorrow's June 1st, so we just usher in the summer. Hopefully, the Reds go over or under. Hopefully, the Athletics get that sweep. I don't remember what Paul said. Paul, what was your bet?
Orioles.
The Orioles winning the money line.
Casey's
And
final
hopefully
send-off.
my bet loses that the Rays are going to win tonight. But this has been Box Lunch. As always, is presented by Betfred Sportsbook. Reed Mouse, Elliot, Jacob, Casey, Paul. Thank you, guys. We'll see you on Friday. Casey, before we issue this off, just got to say, I'll see you on Saturday.
I'll see you
Good
Saturday.
luck for the final few days.
Good luck. Wait, I need the chat. I need some positive vibes for Casey in the chat here to end things out. I don't know. Can we get the chat to give Casey a little good luck here? It's the last show. Casey's not on the show. Casey, you're not on the show again till next Monday.
Right, like the 10th.
Like the 10th or something.
It'd be like the 13th.
Yeah,
13th.
it's
The 13th.
2 weeks from
or
this
the
past
12th,
Monday.
The 12th.
12th.
Good luck, Casey.
Casey, have fun on your honeymoon as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who is going to bust a move the best? Paul? Me? Tom? Or Tomas?
Or Tracy.
Or Tracy?
If I had to guess, Reed, it can't be you because you're probably going to wear too tight of clothes. So you're already
good.
limited there.
That was good.
I think, if I had to guess, it's probably Tom. Tom, he's surprisingly still in really good shape. He's
Surprisingly.
Yeah, are you?
well.
Should he not be in good shape?
No, when you get up in age, you tend to,
Did you just call him old?
What are you talking about? here?
Casey, we were doing well here. Just keep going.
my bet is Tom. My bet is Tom.
Tom, when he hears wobble star, he hears get in there. He gets in there.
He gets in there.
He's wobble, baby, wobble, baby. All right, see you guys. See you on Friday.
See ya.